Hello everyone, this is your friend Naruto Nexus 2.0 and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Naruto the Ultimate Sakura and Sasuke Romance in Her Experience Part 1. Sakura was running late again. On the last day she ever wanted to run late. Today was the day she officially became a ninja. It couldn't be helped. She'd had to finish a large batch of ointment, which she needed to sell to the village apothecary. She'd hoped she'd be able to do it this morning, but she ran out of time, instead shoving the jars into her tattered backpack to deal with on a break. She skidded to a stop in front of the classroom, listening to Iruka-sensei's voice carry through the door. There was no way to sneak in. Stealing her nerves, she pushed open the door and walked in. Of today you're all ninjas, Iruka was cut off by the sound of the door opening. You're late again, Sakura. He sighed. Well, what do you know, the walking jinx really did manage to graduate. The snarky voice of Watanabe Amy rang from the middle of the class. A small wave of laughter erupted, mainly from Ami's lackeys. Sakura ignored her. I'm sorry, sensei, she said, bowing, before taking a seat at the front near the widow. Right. As I was saying, to get here you've faced difficult trials and hardships, but that's nothing. What comes next will be far more difficult. Now you are only genin, first-level ninjas. All the genin will be grouped into 3-man squads. Each squad will be led by a jonin, an elite ninja. Well, someone's gotta be in Sasuke-kun's group. I wonder who. She heard Ino say from her spot a few rows back, in between the bored-looking Uchiha Sasuke and a rather bruised Uzumaki Naruto. Watch it be me, you hog. Shanaru. She heard her own voice echo in the back of her mind. Another her, manifested from every repressed angry, childish, thought she couldn't afford to have. It wouldn't matter if it was. I can't afford a crush or boyfriend right now. Of course, feelings could never be dictated by the mind. Like Ino, and the most of the other girls in her class, she'd had a crush on Uchiha Sasuke since she was 5. We want each squad to have a balance of strengths and abilities, so that's how we set them up. I will now announce the squads. Sakura zoned out. So long as she wasn't on a squad with Amy or any of her cronies, she'd be fine. Actually, on second thought, it probably wouldn't be too good to be on a squad with Ino either. Things were still awkward between them since that day she'd made that choice that ended their friendship. She also found Naruto incredibly frustrating. So maybe not him either. Squad 7. Uzumaki Naruto, Haruno Sakura, and Uchiha Sasuke. Quote, suck it, pig. We really were placed with Sasuke-kun. Yeah, but we're also stuck with Naruto. So, just smack him if he gets annoying. We're supposed to be a team. And teams can't smack each other if they get annoying. Quote, Sakura sighed. Now wasn't the time to be fighting with herself. Iruka continued reading off the newly formed squads. Squad 8. Hyuga Hinata, Inuzuka Kiba, and Aburame Shino. Squad 10. Yamanaka Ino, Nara Shikamaru, Akamichi Choji. Sakura vaguely heard Ino and Shikamaru start arguing. Iruka-sensei, why does a great ninja like me have to be in the same group with a slug like Sasuke? Naruto demanded loudly, making Sakura sigh. Sasuke had the best scores of all the graduating students. Naruto, you had the worst scores. Iruka admonished, making the class break out in laughter. To create a balanced group, we put the best student with the worst student. Quote, Sakura absently wondered what that meant about her. Just make sure you don't get in my way. Loser. The sound of Sasuke's cool voice broke her out of her musing. Grr. What did you say? Hard of hearing. Quote, Sakura twitched and sighed again. Ehem. Iruka called the class back to attention. After lunch, you'll meet your new jonin teachers. Until then, class dismissed. Sakura grabbed her bag and quickly bolted from the room. She didn't have a lot of time. Sakura-chan. Naruto caught up with her. Wanna have lunch together to get to know each other better? Since we're a team now. Sorry, I can't. I'm busy. She sped off, leaving a frustrated Naruto in her wake. I bet she wouldn't be so busy if it was that bastard who asked. A maniacal idea occurred to Naruto and he abruptly went off in search of Sasuke. He needed to make sure that bastard wouldn't show up and ruin everything when he tried to ask her again, this time using Sasuke's face. Unfortunately for Naruto, when he did put his ingenious plan into motion, Sakura was nowhere to be found. Ikahara-san, Sakura called, walking into the small shop. She had to get back before lunch was over, so she needed to sell this quick. You're back. That was fast, came the gruff voice of the older shopkeeper. He ducked out from the back room coming to meet her at the counter. 12 dozen jars of antibacterial, antimicrobial, soothing topical ointment. Good for bruises, minor cuts, and burns, she said with a bright smile, placing an armful of the crudely carved wooden jars on the counter. The man sighed. Look, kid, I still have some of your last batch I haven't sold yet. I don't need this many. I'll take half. Sakura bit her lip. Half wouldn't pay enough. She looked around trying to think and caught the glint of her Hittite in the window. She looked back at him with determination. 3/4. What? By 3/4. I'm an official ninja now. I'll be going on missions with my team and won't have the time to make these as much. Stock up now. At least by 3/4. Ikahara studied her. He'd never admit it, but he liked this kid a lot. She was smart, hard-working, and determined. He actually respected her and had come to think of her as something of a niece he wanted to look out for. So you graduated, huh? Yes, sir. The man pondered the jars on the counter for a while before letting out a small huff. You make a good argument, kid. I'll take 'em all. You will. Her spring green eyes widened with excitement and surprise. Call it a graduation gift, he said, handing her a stack of bills, scooping up the jars, and disappearing behind the curtained-off back room. Sakura quickly counted the money, making sure it was all there. When she looked up, she noticed there were 4 jars left on the counter. Ikahara-san, would you like me to put these on the shelf for you? Those are yours. Huh, he peeked out from behind the curtain. For you and your team. Knowing you, you probably didn't save any for yourself. It took a second for Sakura to find her words. Thank you so much. I'm rootin' for you, kid. Don't forget to stop in from time to time. Quote. Sakura beamed at him and nodded. She stuffed the 4 jars into her worn-out pack and took off with a pleasant wave goodbye. She made it back with 10 minutes to spare. She didn't feel like going into the classroom early and listening to Amy berate her in front of her new teammates, so she led herself on a bench outside and took out her little notebook she used for budgeting. Ikahara-san had paid her 300 ryo for the ointment. She needed to set 80 aside for rent. The first of the month was coming up after all, which left her with 220 for the month. 40 a week for food would total 160, which would only leave her 60 ryo to spare. She'd still had to get a few ingredients for her mother's medicine and she needed some new kunai. 60 wouldn't be enough. Of course now she'd start getting missions which would pay, but she couldn't account for rate or amount. And she didn't want to bank on a variable. Since her mother's illness had taken a turn for the worst, Sakura was the sole breadwinner for them. Her father had died on a mission when she was 4, leaving Sakura and her civilian mother alone in a village built and run for shinobi. Haruno Mebuki was a force to be reckoned with. She'd worked 2 jobs for years to keep them afloat and send Sakura to the academy. When Sakura had turned 8, her mother got sick. At first she'd continued to work through it, but it got worse and she'd had to stop one of her jobs. They'd gone to the hospital, but only shinobi had access to free healthcare and they couldn't afford it without pulling Sakura from the academy, which Mebuki refused to do. So Sakura had started studying. She read up on as much about the human body, diseases, and medicines as she could. By the time Sakura was 10, Mebuki was too sick to continue working at all. Sakura did her best to treat her mother's symptoms, creating her own medicines and treatments based on what she studied, and worked various ODD jobs, side hustles like the ointment, and occasional shoplifting on the truly desperate occasion, to get by. Her medicines did seem to help with the symptoms and stop Mebuki from getting worse. But she knew it would only help for so long. Her mom needed a real doctor to give her a real diagnosis and real treatment. Long story short, Sakura needed more than 60 ryo. I have a few of the ointment containers I carved left, maybe I could sell those, they're not exactly the epitome of craftsmanship though. Quote, have you seen that jerk, Naruto? Sasuke-kun. Her hand immediately slammed her notebook closed, a blush coloring her cheeks. Sasuke's eyes lingered on the book a few seconds before drifting back to her. Naruto. You seen him? He repeated sharply. Naruto. Why are you? Sakura was smart. It only took her a quick glance at his angry demeanor to put two and two together. He caused trouble again. Sakura felt something in her snap. Thoughts that she normally kept buried suddenly started bubbling up uncontrollably. He was badly brought up. He's never had any parents. He doesn't have anyone to answer to, and it's made him completely selfish. He was never given an ounce of responsibility. Since he's totally alone, he just gets to do whatever he wants. I could never do that. Kids without families always grow up selfish. That, and lonely. Sasuke's tone was deadly sharp, breaking her out of whatever mind space had let her mouth run so fr. Eely. What? Being scolded by your parents doesn't even compare. Wah. What's gotten into you all of a sudden? The wind stirred his hair and shirt, somehow making him seem even more intimidating. You make me sick. He spat, storming off. I make him sick, she thought, collapsing against the bench. It hurt a lot. No matter how much she told herself she didn't have time for a crush, it didn't stop her heart from picking up speed whenever she saw him, or her cheeks to tint pink whenever he looked at her, or her need to hear him acknowledge her. She might not be able to waste time following Sasuke around and learning everything about him the way Ino and the others could, but the feelings were still there. What the hell was I saying? I'd trade freedom 1,000 times over for mom. I don't have the right to complain. And I need to be nicer to Naruto. We're teammates now, after all. The bell rang, snapping her out of her depression. It was time to meet her new Jonin sensei. Team 7 sat alone in the now emptied classroom. Naruto kept jumping all over the place and looking outside for their new sensei. Seriously, what's with this guy? He's later than us. Shanaru. Naruto, just sit down. Looking around like that won't make him show up any faster, she said. I don't want to. How come our teacher's the only one that's late? The other groups already met their new teachers and took off on some new adventure or something, and UKA sensei's gone too. I know, okay. She looked up at the sound of clattering to see Naruto on top of a stool on the doorway positioning a chalkboard eraser wedged between the slider and the wall. What are you doing? Quote, that's what he gets for showing up late. Surprise. Naruto cheered as he jumped from the stool. You're asking for trouble. You know you shouldn't do that. She said, her hands on her hips. This looks fun. Quote, it's completely childish. We are children. Our teacher is an elite Jonin. You really think he'd fall for that? Sasuke's bored eyes studied the dumb prank. Yeah, Sasuke's right. She was cut off by a hand pushing the door open to reveal an attractive young man with white hair. Spiked to the side, a mask covering half his face, and his Hittite covering one eye, who froze in shock as the eraser landed on his head. You fell for it. Naruto burst out laughing. Sasuke looked thoroughly unimpressed. I'm sorry, sensei. I told him not to do it. Sakura cried, immediately trying to separate herself from the childish prank. Bullseye. Hell yeah. The man bent to pick up the eraser. How should I put this? He murmured thoughtfully. My first impression of this group. You're all idiots. Alright. Why don't you introduce yourselves? Their new teacher drawled, leaning against the railing of the school roof. What would you like us to say? Sakura asked, hugging her knees to her chest. Things you like, things you hate, dreams for the future, hobbies. Things like that. Why don't you go first, sensei, to show us how it works? Naruto pressed. Alright, I'm Hatake Kakashi. Things I like and things I hate, I don't feel like telling you that. My dreams for the future, never really thought about it. As for my hobbies, I have lots of hobbies. Quote, well, that was totally useless. All he really told us was his name. All right, your turn. You on the right. You first. All right. Believe it. I'm Uzumaki Naruto. I like instant ramen in a cup and I really like the ramen Aruka sensei got me from Ichiraku's. But I hate the 3 minutes you have to wait after you pour the water in the ramen cup. My hobby is eating different kinds of ramen and comparing them. And my dream is to be the greatest Hokage. Then the whole village will have to stop disrespecting me and start treating me like I'm somebody. Somebody important. Kakashi continued to look bored. Alright, next. I'm Haruno Sakura. I like reading, dancing, and money. I hate the first of the month, taxes, and bullies. My hobbies are dancing, studying, and reading. My dream for the future is to make a lot of money. Kakashi was mildly surprised. That wasn't quite the answer he'd expected from a girl her age. Given the way she blushed around her dark-haired teammate, and how the rest of the girls in her class seemed to act, he would have expected an answer more re-centered around him. And he certainly hadn't expected a 12-year-old to have any opinion about taxes. What's wrong with the first of the month? Is that like your period or something? Naruto asked, confused. Anger shot straight through to her fist and before she even processed what she was doing, her knuckles collided with his cheek. You can't just ask a girl if that's her time of the month, you moron. As soon as it happened, she reeled back a little, mortified at how she lost it. I can't believe I just did that. Shanaru. Nailed him. All of the males' eyes were on her in mild confusion and surprise. In the academy she'd always seemed more standoffish than hot-headed. She took a shaky breath and looked at where she'd sent the blonde sprawling. Sorry Naruto, if you don't know what's wrong with the first of the month, then you're lucky. Kakashi studied her for a second longer before clearing his throat. His focus shifted to Sasuke. Last one. Quote, my name is Uchiha Sasuke. I hate a lot of things, and I don't particularly like anything. What I have is not a dream, because I will make it a reality. I'm going to restore my clan, and destroy a certain someone. Quote, she felt herself blushing again. He was just so cool. It took her a second for her mind to actually process his answer. Wait, restore his clan. What happened to? Her mind jumped back to how mad he'd gotten earlier when she'd been complaining about Naruto's bad upbringing. She was smart. It didn't take long to put two and two together. Oh, no wonder he hates me. Good, Kakashi said, breaking the silence she hadn't realized was there. You're each unique and you have your own ideas. We'll have our fist mission, tomorrow. Naruto hollered with excitement. What kind of mission? A survival exercise. I thought this was supposed to be a real mission, not more practice. We already did this kind of training at the academy, that's how we got here. She tried to push down her annoyance. She'd been hoping to start missions immediately so she could get paid sooner. This won't be like your previous training. What kind of training is it then? Naruto asked. Kakashi started laughing, and Sakura felt the sudden urge to kick the man. Naruto got laughed at and ridiculed a lot, frequently because he said something stupid, but this wasn't one of those times. He didn't deserve to have their new teacher dismissing him the way the rest of his classmates had. Sure, he was wild and undisciplined since he'd never had anyone to raise him and teach him otherwise, but that meant the adults in his life should be stepping up to help him, not put him down more. Why are you laughing? She demanded. That was a good question. Naruto looked over at her in surprise. No one ever defended him like that before. Well, it's just that you won't like my answer. Of the 27 graduates that came here, only 9 will actually be accepted as genin. The other 18 will be weeded out and sent back to the academy. In other words, this is a make it or break it pass-fail test, and the chance that you'll fail is at least 66%. What? Naruto roared, we worked so hard to get here. What was that graduation exam even for then? Oh, that, to select candidates that might become genin. Or not. That's how it is. I decide if you pass or fail. Be at the designated training spot at 5 a.m. And bring your ninja gear. I can't afford to fail, I have to pass this test. If I don't, it would make all those tuition payments and mom's sacrifice a complete waste. Not to mention I'll have no options. I put all my eggs in this basket, I can't drop it now. Quote, well, that's it. You're dismissed. Oh, and you'd best skip breakfast tomorrow. Otherwise you'll puke. I'm home, Mom, she announced rather unnecessarily. The apartment door opened into the one main room, where Mebuki was sitting up on her futon. There wasn't even enough floor space for 2 beds. Sakura usually slept on the bare floor next to her mother, or leaned up against the kitchen window. It only took 2 steps from the main room, up and across the small ledge they called a hallway, to get to the tiny kitchen which housed the only wind. Out in the apartment, to the left of the kitchen in their hallway, was their stall of a bathroom, at least the hot water worked. Mebuki had always taught Sakura to announce when she was home, despite their apartment being the size of a shoebox. You're up. How are you feeling? She asked, kneeling in front of her mother and placing a hand on her forehead to gauge her temperature. Mebuki shooed her hand away. That's not important right now. How was your first day? She asked, excitedly. Though severely ill, she never acted like it. I got placed on Team 7, with Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto. We have our first mission tomorrow, she said brightly. There was no way she was going to tell her mother, who gave up everything so she could become a ninja, that her mission was actually a survival test with a higher chance of failing than passing. Uchiha and Uzumaki, huh? Those poor boys have had it rough. You be good to them, understand? They're your team now. Your father always said that his team was a part of his family, and God knows those 2 could use some family. That confirmed her suspicion about Sasuke. I know Naruto's always been alone, but what happened to Sasuke-kun? Quote, his entire clan was killed. I think you were around 8 at the time. Oh, I didn't know. She looked down at her hands, a swell of guilt suffocating her chest. He had every right to hate her after what she'd said. It had been so insensitive. To Naruto too. She was terrified of her mother dying, doing everything in her meager power to prevent it. How could she have even thought for a second that his childish freedom was worth the price of being alone, when that in and of itself was one of her greatest fears? Sasuke had been right, of course she made him sick, she made herself sick. It did explain the discrepancy in her memory. She remembered seeing Sasuke smile and even laugh a few times when they were younger. Out of nowhere he seemed to stop and grow cold. It must have been because of the murders. If he'd been 8 at the time his family was killed, then that was the same year her mother got sick. 8 had been a bad year for them both. Mebuki studied the girl's saddened and guilty face. Her daughter had gotten her brains from somewhere. Mebuki was smart and it didn't take long for her to figure out Sakura had probably said something unknowingly insensitive. Her kid already incorrectly blamed herself for her mother's illness. She was so desperately focused on trying to heal her and keep them afloat that she acted much older than her age, and frequently seemed to forget that she was a child. And children were allowed to mess up and be selfish and inconsiderate every now and then. Wait a minute, Sasuke-kun. Uchiha Sasuke, is that Sasuke-kun? The one you haven't shut up about since you were 5. Quote, Sakura's pink head jerked up in surprise, her cheeks matching her hair and her eyes huge. Hey, that's. It must be fate. Her mother teased, a huge smile on her face. Mom. Sakura whined. She loved when her daughter got like this, she sounded like her age for once. Mebuki burst out laughing. Unfortunately the playful air didn't last long. Mebuki's laughs turned into a long bout of coughing. Sakura's flustered demeanor was instantly turned serious, running to the kitchen and returning with a full glass of water in the blink of an eye. She helped her mother drink and the coughing fit gradually calmed. Sakura rubbed her back in gentle circles. Don't worry, Mom. I'm a ninja now. I'll make a ton of money and we can finally get you treated by a real doctor. Her mother sighed sadly. Hey, it'll be okay. I promise. I can take care of everything now. We'll finally have a stable income again. I'll get you the best treatment possible, I swear. She said, giving her mother a reassuring smile as she got up and crossed to the kitchen to scrape up some dinner. Mebuki shook her head. That wasn't the kind of promise a child was supposed to make to their parent. Sakura, do you remember why you wanted to become a ninja? To make money. It's the only reliable career path in a place like this. Quote. Mebuki shook her head again. Either the girl didn't remember her original reason, or she was repressing it. Sakura came back in carrying a tray with their meager dinner. Immediately the older woman caught that Sakura had given herself a smaller portion. Stop doing that, she snapped irritably, spooning some of her own rice into her daughter's bowl. You're a ninja now and you're going to need your strength. Mom, Sakura said pointedly. You need to keep your energy up. Besides, you used to do this for me when I was younger. Yes, 'cause I'm a mom and you're my kid. I'm entitled. You, Missy, are not. Sakura wanted to argue but decided that this wasn't a hill worth dying on. Her mom was too stubborn. And she had a point. Sakura had skipped both lunch and breakfast, and if she had to skip breakfast for her test tomorrow, then she needed to make sure she ate now. Besides, once she was a full-fledged genin, she'd make enough to at least allow for equal food portions. Hopefully. What time do you have to meet your team tomorrow? 5 a.m. That's early. Oh well. You're usually up anyway. Sakura winced a little. You knew. I'm your mother. I know everything. I'd lecture you about how you're a growing girl and need 8 hours of sleep, but I know you won't listen. Between me, our situation, and your career path, it's unlikely you'd get that much sleep anyways. May as well get used to it now. Sakura's face softened. Thanks, Mom. By the time Sakura arrived at the designated training ground, Naruto and Sasuke were already there. She was late again, though not by too much. Morning, Sakura-chan. Naruto greeted bright though a little tiredly. Morning, Naruto. Sasuke-kun. She said, flashing a smile. Why are you always late? It wasn't so much of a question as it was a demand for answers. She tried hard not to flush at the thought that he took interest in her. I had some stuff I needed to take care of. Sasuke's eyes narrowed. While it was true, it was vague, and without knowing the details of her situation, it was hard to believe that every day, a 12-year-old girl was being held up by various unnamed tasks. Especially this early. At 5 a.m. She nodded but didn't elaborate. Her mother had told her to be good to her team. They had enough to weight to carry, she didn't need to burden them with her baggage as well. Besides, it would be insensitive to complain when she still had her mother, and she now knew that they both had no one. Oh, lay off her bastard. It's not like Kakashi-sensei's even here yet. Naruto defended. He had a point. Their Jonin instructor was nowhere to be seen. In fact, it was another 5 hours before he decided to show up. Morning, everyone. Ready for your first day? Hey, you're late. Naruto yelled, pointing an accusing finger at him. Sakura's own irritation was bubbling up so much she almost joined him. Well, a black cat crossed my path, so I had to take the long way around. What kind of crappy excuse is that? She heard her own voice internally screech. Well, let's get started. Kakashi drawled lazily, distracting them from their ire. He placed an alarm clock on a stump. Okay, it's set for noon. Your assignment is simple. Take these 2 bells away from me by noon. Those who can't do it won't get lunch. They'll be tied to that log over there while I eat my lunch in front of them. So that's why he wanted us to skip breakfast. Joke's on him. We're used to this. We can work through no food for at least 36 hours. Shanaru. That's not something to be proud of. Wait a minute. Kakashi-sensei, why are there only 2 bells? She asked. So that way, someone ends up tied to the log without lunch. He said, smiling behind his mask. That person will be disqualified for failing the mission, and will return to the academy. It might be one of you or it could be all 3 of you. You can use your shuriken. You won't be able to take the bells from me if you don't come at me with the intent to kill me. You sure you want to do that? You couldn't even evade a chalkboard eraser. Naruto yelled. In this world, those who aren't skilled enough tend to complain more. Well, just ignore the loser. Naruto growled. Sakura couldn't blame him. It was one thing to be called a loser by Sasuke, a peer, it was another to hear it from an adult who was supposed to be mentoring them. Begin on my ready go signal. Apparently the loser comment sat less well with Naruto than she originally thought. He took out a kunai and immediately charged their sensei. Sakura didn't even see what happened. Faster than she could visually comprehend, Kakashi had Naruto by the hair, holding the blonde's own kunai against the back of his head. Don't be so hasty. I didn't say start yet. He released Naruto, who stumbled away from him. Well, that's fine. At least you came at me with the intent to kill me, how can I put this? I feel like I'm starting to like you guys. Okay. Ready. Start. Immediately all three of them jumped away to hide. Well, except for one. All right, let's face off fair and square. The loudmouth yelled. Oh, you know, compared to the other two, you're a little weird. The only thing weird here is your hairstyle. He yelled, charging the Jonin yet again. All right, Shinobi Battle Skills number 1, Taijutsu. He said, reaching into his weapon pouch. Except it wasn't a weapon he pulled out. It was a little orange book, Ika Ika Paradise. What's with the book? Well, I'm curious about what happens next. Don't worry. With you guys as opponents, it makes no difference if I'm reading or not. That only enraged Naruto more. He charged again, attempting to punch and kick the Jonin, but he kept being blocked by one hand. The blonde tried once again to punch him, but his fist only met air. You shouldn't let your enemy get behind you so easily. Sakura recognized the position of Kakashi's hand. It was a hand sign for a ninjutsu, one that could easily kill Naruto. It wasn't tactically wise to give away her position, but her mouth moved before she could stop herself. Naruto, get out of there quick. He'll kill you. Too late. Leaf Village Secret Ultimate Taijutsu. 1000 Years of Death. Kakashi delivered a swift hard jab up Naruto's butt, who immediately leapt into the air, howling, crashing into the river. Oh, it's not a ninjutsu. She thought flatly. Even so, we're genin. How are we supposed to go up against a Jonin's strength? Naruto crawled out of the water looking pathetic. Come now, you can't eat lunch if you don't get a bell by noon. I know that. You're not very energetic for someone who claims they'll surpass the Hokage. Kakashi stated blandly. Naruto's stomach chose that moment to give a loud rumble. Damn it. Damn it. I can still fight, even if I'm hungry. His words briefly brought her attention to her own empty stomach, but she didn't dwell on it. She'd long ago gotten used to hunger pangs and operating on little to no food. She was probably the only one on the team that wasn't particularly hindered by hunger. Damn it. Hunger or not, I'm going to become a ninja no matter what. Naruto loudly proclaimed as several Narutos suddenly leapt from the water. Now for my favorite. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. What? 7 Narutos. And they're not just images either. They can't all be the real thing. Exclamation mark quote. Kakashi seemed unfazed, until a Naruto jumped out of nowhere and grabbed him from behind. You shouldn't let your enemy get behind you so easily, sensei. I sent my clones out to distract you while I hid in the water to come at you from behind. Quote. A diversionary tactic, not bad Naruto. Naruto's upper hand didn't last long though. Kakashi used a substitution jutsu, switching places with one of the clones and causing mass upheaval in the Naruto army, resulting in the blonde punching himself senseless, before finally dispelling the jutsu. That was embarrassing to watch. Okay, time to focus. Of the three of us, the strongest is definitely Sasuke-kun. So if I stick close to him, my chances of getting a bell will go up by at least 33%. She watched as Naruto fell for an incredibly obvious trap and Kakashi started berating him. A ninja must see through deception. I know that. Believe it. You know, I'm telling you because you don't get it. Listen up. Your movements are wasteful. The rest of Kakashi's lecture got cut off by a barrage of shuriken. He'd finally dropped his guard and Sasuke had taken advantage of it, or so it seemed. Kakashi's body disappeared with a puff of smoke, leaving a log in its place. Sasuke immediately took off, concerned that he'd given away his location. Sakura followed. She needed to stick close to Sasuke if she had any hopes of getting a bell. The problem was he was too fast and she lost track of him. Damn, where'd he go? Did Kakashi-sensei find him already? I need to get to them before Kakashi-sensei does anything to Sasuke-kun. My only shot will be if I can grab a bell while Kakashi-sensei's distracted. I can't let myself be sent back. She almost let out a squeak of surprise when she nearly ran straight into the Jonin. Sakura ducked behind a bush quickly, letting out a sigh of relief that he hadn't noticed her. Sakura. Behind you. Sakura never had very much time to train given her home situation. Her physical skills were definitely lacking. However, Sakura did love to dance, and she was very good at it. One of her side hustles was street performing. Being a dancer gave her a few skills that proved highly useful: incredible flexibility, perfect body sense and control, and very fast reaction time. And she found those skills kicking in instinctually. The second Kakashi had said her name, she jumped flipping into the clearing to put some space between them. While her quick reflexes and grace were a little impressive, Kakashi didn't dwell on them. She'd barely landed when he cast the genjutsu in a swirl of leaves. Huh. She looked around but couldn't find her sensei anywhere. Where did he go? I could have sworn he was behind me. Where is he? What's going on? Ra. She whipped around, pink hair flying, and felt her heart stop. Her mom was somehow in front of her. And before she could even question what she was doing there, her mother fell to her knees, and then to the ground. Sakura's world stopped. She was only vaguely aware of her own scream before she fainted. Kakashi sighed. Maybe I went a little overboard casting an illusion of her greatest fear, but it's really something she should notice. Shinobi Battle Skills Number 2, Genjutsu. Sakura was easily lured. He looked around. Sasuke was nearby. It was time to go knock the last brat on their ass. Sakura awoke feeling clammy. She looked around but there was no sign of her mother, which meant Genjutsu. I should have known. Mom wouldn't be able to make it all the way here. I'm gonna kill Kakashi-sensei for giving me a heart attack like that. Shanaru. We can kill him after we're officially ninja. For now, I've gotta focus on getting a bell. My best bet is still Sasuke-kun. She stood and shook herself off, searching for her most skilled teammate. Surprisingly, it didn't take her too long to find him. She darted out into a clearing and stopped mid-stride at the sight of Sasuke's head sticking out of the ground. She stared at him, frozen for a second. He didn't put me in a genjutsu again, did he? Kai. She attempted the release a little unsurely. Sasuke's head still remained. Sakura. He sounded a little surprised to see her. She blinking a couple times, and tried to release the genjutsu once more, but nothing changed. He just continued to look at her blankly. So not a genjutsu. Sasuke-kun, what happened? What do you think happened? He glowered darkly. She felt herself flush a little at why she'd asked him such a dumb question. Alright. Hold on. She found a long, sturdy stick. Here, we can use this to leverage some of the dirt, which should give you enough space to move. He eyed her for a second before nodding his assent. Sakura shoved the stick into ground directly in front of his shoulder, and pulled it back against Sasuke. He felt the dirt shift around him, allowing him to free his arm and pull himself out. Once he was out, he brushed himself off, determined to go after the bells again, but stopped short when he felt her grab his arm. Sakura dumped some water on a cut along his forearm. He hadn't even noticed it. Still holding his arm in one hand, she reached into her pack and pulled out a small crudely carved wood jar. Can you open it? She asked, holding it out to him. If I let go of you, you'll probably walk away and leave this cut for later. But you shouldn't leave things like this untreated for so long or they'll get infected, Sasuke-kun. Quote, it's fine, Sakura. The faster you open it, the faster I'll let go. She answered stubbornly, knowing it was a lost cause, trying to keep herself from blushing. Sasuke stared her down another second before sighing and opening the jar. She quickly dipped her fingers in the ointment and began spreading it along the gash. He'd expected it to sting, but the balm actually felt cool and soothing. I'm sorry for what I said yesterday. I didn't know about your family, and regardless, I was wrong to say it. I wasn't exactly talking about being scolded. Well, it's not important what I was talking about. You're right. Nothing's worse than being alone. Her face was burning and she couldn't look at him the whole time, though she felt his eyes on her. She released his arm but was surprised when he didn't immediately bolt. At that time, I was crying. Sakura looked up, surprised. Sasuke's obsidian eyes were still on her, but they seemed to be looking far past her. That man, he left me alone, with no one. He wasn't sure what he was saying or why he was saying it. Maybe because for the first time in 4 years, someone was taking care of him. Tending to his cut the way his mother used to. Or maybe it was her apology, her acknowledgement of how terrible it was to be left alone. I'm the only one who can kill that man, I'm an avenger. I must become stronger than him. The sound of an alarm cut him off. Damn it, I wasted too much time talking. He turned and walked off. Too many things were going on in Sakura's head. Her face was flaming and her heart raced at the fact that she'd actually touched Sasuke, and that he'd opened up to her a little. Meanwhile, her head was screaming out how she'd failed the test and anxiety gnawed at her stomach. Damn, I swear I'll put Kakashi-sensei in a chokehold if he tries to send us back. Shanaru. Sakura and Sasuke sat on either side of Naruto, who was tied to a log. Your stomachs are growling, Kakashi observed. By the way, about this test, there'll be no need for you guys to go back to the academy. Naruto cheered loudly. Sakura couldn't believe it. Her hopes were rising as the knot in her stomach loosened slightly. The three of you must quit being ninja. The knot in her stomach tightened hard. Shanaru. What the hell does this jerk wad think he's saying? What? Why do we have to quit? I mean, yeah, we didn't get the bells, but why does that mean that we have to stop being ninja? Exclamation mark quote. Naruto yelled, flailing his legs. Because, you're all brats who aren't qualified to be ninja. Sasuke couldn't take it anymore. He changed at Kakashi in a blind rage, but the Jonin was too fast for him and in the blink of an eye, Sasuke was on his stomach, Kakashi twisting one of his hands behind his back while stepping on his head. Like I said, brats. Get your dirty foot off Sasuke-kun, you geezer. Do you kids think being a ninja is easy? Why do you think you're doing this exercise in teams? Quote. What do you mean? Naruto asked, confused. It's as if you guys have no understanding of the answer to this test. Why do you think you're placed in 3-man squads? So what if we're in a 3-man squad? Naruto demanded. Teamwork. Wait. You wanted us to work together? Sakura asked. You may have been able to take the bells if the 3 of you coordinated an attack together. If you wanted us to use teamwork, then why are there only 2 bells? Sakura asked. If the 3 of us were to desperately go after the bells, with one of us having to be held back, that wouldn't create teamwork, it would cause internal discord. Of course. This is a test purposely designed to pit you against each other. It's under just such conditions where one's own interests aren't the issue. The intention was to select those who could prioritize teamwork. But you idiots, Kakashi took a deep breath. Sakura. She straightened under his intense one-eyed glare. You spent the whole time chasing after Sasuke when you weren't even certain of where he was, completely ignoring Naruto when he was right in front of you. I don't know whether your reason was personal or tactical, but it was a failing either way. If personal, then as a teammate and a human, you should have found it in yourself to care enough to at least help Naruto down. If tactical, Then you completely overlooked a powerful option, especially after seeing that high-level multi-shadow clone jutsu. Quote, he's completely right, what was I doing? Who cares if he's right? His stupid test was rigged. Shanaru. Naruto. All you do is run in solo, no matter how many times it failed to work. You even went so far as to try and steal what may have been one of your teammates' lunches. He shifted his lone eye down to Sasuke. And you labeled the other two as hindrances and acted on your own. He looked up again. Missions are carried out in squads. Of course, individual skills are important, but teamwork is more important than that. Individual actions that disrupt teamwork throw the team into crisis and lead to death. For example, he took out a kunai and held it against Sasuke's neck. Sakura. Kill Naruto or Sasuke dies. He can't be serious. There's no way I could make a choice like that. Quote, is what would happen, he said, removing the kunai and finally releasing Sasuke. You're faced with two impossible choices and end up being killed. Every mission is a life-risking assignment. Kakashi walked over to a stone engraved with hundreds of names. Look over here. These are all the ninjas who are called heroes in the village. That, I like that. I'm gonna get my name up there too. Naruto flailed excitedly. But these aren't regular heroes. Quote, what kinda heroes are they? Naruto asked excitedly. They're all Kia. Kia. That sounds cool. What's that mean? We're sorry, Haruno-san. Your husband's Kia. It means killed in action, Naruto. They all died on missions. Sakura said softly. The blonde's smile immediately faded. Sasuke's eyes tightened. This is a memorial. It has the names of my friends engraved on it. Sakura immediately felt her heart go out to the man before her, all the anger she'd been building towards him dropping. Gee, I'll give you guys one more chance. However, this time it'll be a harsher battle to take the bells. Those who want the challenge can eat lunch, however, don't give Naruto any. It's punishment for breaking the rules and trying to eat lunch on your own. If someone lets him eat, that person will be disqualified on the spot. I make the rules here. Got it? Sakura couldn't remember the last time she'd had such a full and balanced meal. Meals like this were rarely something she could afford, and when one was offered to her for free she knew to take full advantage of it. Who knows when she'd get a chance to actually eat her fill again. Except Naruto's incessant stomach growling was filling her with guilt. She knew what it was like to watch people eating in front of you when you're hungry. Plus she felt bad for completely disregarding him earlier. His stomach gave another loud rumble. I'm okay with not eating lunch. No sweat at all. Believe it. It would have been more believable if his exclamation wasn't punctuated by yet another loud growl. I want to give him some, but who knows when I'll get a chance to eat like this again. Individual actions that disrupt teamwork throw the team into crisis. Screw it. I'm more used to being hungry anyways. Quote, here. Both she and Sasuke had held out their lunches to Naruto at the same time. All three stared at each other in surprise. But what about Kakashi-sensei's rules? You two could get in serious trouble, Naruto murmured in shock. It's okay. There's no sign of him right now. The three of us are going to get the bells together. It'll be trouble for me if you become a hindrance, so. Naruto's eyes slid over to Sakura for confirmation. She gave him a small smile. Kakashi-sensei said it'll be harder this time. You'll need your strength. Besides, I don't eat as much as Sasuke-kun, so, don't worry about it and have it. She felt Sasuke's onyx eyes land on her and did her best not to blush. Sakura-chan, Naruto said thickly, his eyes watering, thank you. Don't thank me. Just hurry up and eat. Before he comes back. But, Naruto flexed his arm against the rope. Sakura felt her eye twitch in annoyance. This is a one-time thing, got it? She said, feeding him a bite. As she went to give him a second one, Sasuke grabbed her wrist. This time there was no fighting it, her cheeks turned tomato red. Let's switch off. That way we all get to eat a more equal amount. Secretly very relieved by that offer, Sakura smiled and nodded. They made it through 3 cycles before an explosion of smoke in front of them marked the arrival of their teacher. You 3. He yelled. You defied the rules, so you know what's coming. His hands sped through signs, conjuring dark storm clouds above them. Do you have something to say? He asked them coldly, over the howling wind. But you said sensei. These 2 were a 3-man squad, right? Sasuke picked up. Your father always said that his team was a part of his family. That's right, Sakura declared. The 3 of us are one. So that's right. That's right. That's right. Believe it, Naruto emphasized. The 3 of you are one, huh? He looked them over, all staring back defiantly at him, ready to fight for their right to be a team. You pass, Kakashi said, his visible eye closing in a smile. What? All of them looked confused and unsure if they should drop their guard. You pass. We do. Why? Sakura asked unsurely, like she didn't trust what she was hearing. You guys are the first. Up until now, it was always just dunces who would meekly listen to what I said. A ninja must see through deception. In the ninja world, those who break the rules are branded as scum, but those who don't cherish their friends are even worse than scum. Quote, the 3 were finally willing to believe his words. Sasuke smirked. Naruto teared up, mumbling that Kakashi was actually kinda cool. Sakura smiled in a way that wasn't a front for the first time in a very long time. Her mother, who wasn't even a ninja, had known all along. You be good to them, understand? They're your team now. Your father always said that his team was a part of his family, and God knows those 2 could use some family. That's it for this exercise. Everyone passes. Team 7 starts their first official mission tomorrow, Kakashi said, giving them a thumbs up. Their first official mission they had was cleaning a river of litter. It hadn't been quite what any of them had expected for a mission, but it didn't bother Sakura too much. These kinds of missions were easy, so even though they didn't pay much, hopefully they'd be able to squeeze in a few a day, which would mean more money. It would be enough to up her food budget so that there'd be enough in the apartment for her mom if she ever had to leave on longer missions, as well as start really saving up some money for her mom's medical care. Unfortunately, nowhere in her calculations did she account for Naruto. Hurry up, Naruto, Sasuke's already filled his bag. Kakashi drawled. That's just cause that bastard had a head start. I'll pick up more pieces than him. Believe it, Naruto yelled, running upstream to meet some more of the garbage. Sakura immediately foresaw how badly this could end. Wait, Naruto don't. She didn't even get to finish issuing her warning before he'd slipped and fallen, the contents of his trash bag spilling out downstream. The chaos didn't end there. In the process of falling, he managed to kick up a sharp rock which directly into Sasuke's full bag, ripping it, and sending all the trash he collected downstream as well. You idiot. Now we have to start all over again. Sasuke yelled. Sakura twitched. That impulsive idiot. If we fail this mission and don't get paid, I'm gonna kill him. She took a deep breath. It'll be fine. We just need to focus and think up a faster way. Alright, if we set up a net downstream, we'll be able to catch the garbage pretty quickly. We should. Don't worry about it, asshole. I'll collect every piece of trash here. Believe it. Immediately barreling downstream to catch the litter. Sasuke's eyes pulled away from where they landed on her to glare at Naruto. The hell you will, dead last. Sasuke headed downstream as well. That'll take too long. Those 2 are gonna cost us valuable time, damn it. Quote. Frustration was flooding her and her knuckles tightened around her trash bag. She picked up a can, her hand squeezing it in a death grip as she prepared to hurl it at her 2 teammates, when her mother's words flashed through her head. You be good to them, understand? They're your team now. Your father always said that his team was a part of his family, and God knows those 2 could use some family. Maybe they need this, to relate to each other more. With all her willpower, she swallowed down her frustration and deposited the can into her bag. If this is what my team needs to bond and grow, Who am I to stand in the way? Someone with their own needs. Quote, that's not what matters in teamwork, remember. She turned and continued collecting trash, picking up her pace in an attempt to get them finished sooner. She'd been so caught up in talking herself down from an explosion that she didn't notice Sasuke had been studying her from the corner of High Si the whole time. Nor did she catch the way his eyes narrowed when she turned away from them to continue her task. When they finally finished, it was growing dark and too late to do another mission. She collected her pay, trying not to feel too disheartened. Her pay was still more than what she'd normally scrounge up on an average day of part-time odd jobs. This is fine. It's not as much as I was hoping, but it's okay. This was our first day, I'm sure it won't always turn out like this. Shanaru, I wouldn't count on it with that blonde doofus around. Alright, I mean, we can always keep working odd jobs and side hustles before and after missions to supplement our income, at least until we start getting higher paying missions. She was so lost in her planning that she didn't absorb a word of what her teammates were saying. Alright, to celebrate our first mission, we should have a team dinner at Ichiraku's. Quote, you really think this mission was worth celebrating, loser? It took 10 times longer thanks to you. Whatever, it was still our first mission and we still completed it. We should celebrate. Right, Kakashi-sensei? Quote, well, it might help with team bonding. See, we're going. I'll drag you there if I have to, bastard. Right, Sakura-chan. Huh. She snapped out of her thoughts at the sound of her name. Celebration team bonding dinner at Ichiraku's. The blonde beamed. All of her thoughts came screeching to a halt. She'd never prepared for this. She couldn't afford it, but it'd be so embarrassing and burdensome to tell her teammates that. Excuse. I need an excuse. You know, I'm not really that hungry, maybe some other time. We didn't even get to eat lunch cause of the dead last year. Sasuke interjected, studying her reaction out the corner of his eye. She blushed, both at the fact that her lie was being put under inspection, and that Sasuke seemed to want her to join them. Well, you see, you really should eat more, Sakura-chan. You're tiny enough already. Guys don't like girls on diets. Anger surged through her again, her hand twitching into a fist. Shanaro, you moron. It's not my fault I can't eat much. What the hell do you think you're saying? Calm down. It's not his fault he doesn't know, we're the ones who haven't told him. Naruto. Kakashi admonished, you can't say things like that to a woman. The older man turned towards his pink-haired student, eyeing her nervous demeanor. Although Sakura, this is supposed to be a team dinner. Which means you have to be there. He watched the girl deflate a little and give a nod. He had an idea of what was bothering her. When he'd first been asked to take on a squad, he'd refused. The third Hokage had walked him to each of his future students' homes in a bid to convince him. He'd seen Sasuke's clean, utilitarian apartment, and Naruto's filthy one complete with left-out spoiled milk. He never got a look at the inside of Sakura's place, knowing that she wasn't an orphan and not wanting to potentially intrude on her mother. But he saw the outside, a very rundown apartment complex on the outskirts of the village. That, coupled with the introduction she gave, it was safe to assume the girl didn't have a lot of money at her disposal. He was hoping she'd tell her teammates. They were a team and they should know, but it wasn't his place to tell the boys, that was on her. When they reached the stand, Naruto and Sasuke entered without hesitation, taking seats at the bar. Sakura hesitated a second, and Kakashi sighed, pressing a small amount of money into one of her hands as he passed her. Her eyes jumped to him in surprise, but she read the look he gave her loud and clear, don't get used to it. Regardless, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. Thank you, sensei. She ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, a small miso ramen, out of habit. It was still one of the more filling meals she'd had in a long time. A warmth washed over her as she sat in between her two teammates. She was eating a real dinner, with Sasuke and Naruto. But even his obnoxious table manners and loud chatter didn't lessen the warm glow in her chest. It felt so easy being there with them. She felt like a normal 12-year-old for a second. Not worried about how she was paying for this dinner. Not thinking about how her mother was going to get worse if she didn't scrounge up enough for medical treatment soon. For those brief moments, she felt genuinely happy, a feeling she hadn't had for a little while. Her happiness was short-lived. It wasn't just their first mission. Naruto managed to consistently mess up every mission they got, doubling the mission time. When they'd had to construct a shed, in an attempt to show up Sasuke, he'd attempted to lift a beam too heavy for himself, lost control of it and knocked the entire roof off. When they had to walk some high-ranking officials' dogs, in an attempt to beat Sasuke, Naruto picked the largest dog possible, who proceeded to drag him into a minefield. While babysitting, Naruto managed to lose the child he was watching while laughing at Sasuke, who'd reduced the child in his care to tears. They'd all had to run to catch the kid before he'd fallen down the stairs or stuck his finger in an electrical sock. It took all of Sakura's effort to swallow back her ever-growing annoyance. And she was so busy self-soothing that she never caught the calculating looks Sasuke would throw her way. The team was on their way to the Hokage Tower to get their next mission, when Naruto ran ahead, after initiating another pointless challenge to Sasuke. "Naruto, watch where you're going," Sakura called, but it was too late and he crashed into someone. She hurried over to Naruto, who'd fallen on the impact. "I'm so sorry. He doesn't always." "It's fine. Don't worry, Abu." The woman looked up, her eyes landed on Sakura, and her face suddenly hardened. "You." The woman hissed, her eyes hardening. Sakura stiffened a little. She remembered this woman. Her mother towed her towards a grave. A woman dressed in black stood in front of it, tears in her eyes. "Ayeka-san, I'm so sorry for." The woman turned, glaring, and slapped her mother across the face. "Hey, don't." "Hush, Sakura, it's fine," Mebuki murmured, turning her face back to the woman. "This is all your husband's fault. It's his fault Itsuki-kun's dead. If he couldn't control his chakra, he should have never been in the field." Quote, "I'm sorry, Ayeka-san," Mebuki said quietly, bowing low. Ayeka just glared at her for a long moment. "I guess it's true. His family really was cursed. And so are you too." Ayeka turned and stormed off. "Mommy, she's just grieving Sakura. Don't think about it too much. She lost someone she loved. It's nice to see you again, Ayeka-san." Sakura greeted, bowing. The woman's eyes landed on her Hittite, and she scowled. "They really let you become a shinobi?" Her voice was cold. "It'll be the same thing all over again." She bent and picked up the scroll she'd dropped. Straightening, her eyes swept over to Naruto and Sasuke, who'd joined them. "Watch your backs with this one, or you'll end up dead in the field." She brushed past them, stopping briefly to give Kakashi a nod. Sakura's heart hammered and she felt a familiar tightening in her throat. Who the hell does that witch think she is? Saying something like that in front of Sasuke-kun and Naruto. Stop it. She lost someone she loved. So did we. Sakura-chan. What was that about? Naruto asked, unsure. She could feel Sasuke's silent demand for answers as well. Don't burden your team. She pushed down her tears, hurt, and the simmering anger burning in her gut. Nothing much. Just some old grudge, she said with her well-practiced fake smile. Sasuke's eyes narrowed. It didn't sound like nothing to him. Kakashi studied the three, his eye rolling lazily over to his pink-haired student. He knew her father had died on a mission along with the rest of his team, but he didn't know the details. And it wasn't his place to disclose what little he knew, that was her call. He was concerned about how much she seemed to repress. He'd noticed the way she would tense, ready to snap at her blonde teammate for how much he screwed up, but never acted on it. Whatever she was carrying, it was gonna become too much at some point. He sighed. Come on. We have to go get our mission, he said, walking past the three. Sakura immediately followed, and after a brief hesitation, Sasuke and Naruto joined as well. Ah, there you are. The third Hokage looked up as they entered. We have a mission requested specially for Team 7. You are to go to the mountains to collect a special medicinal flower known as the bloodroot. It's a little white flower which is very effective for treating respiratory problems in low doses, though high doses of it can be fatal. Its juice can stain most anything it comes into contact with, and it's been known to cause reactions similar to poison ivy. Quote, very good. The Hokage smiled. That must be why he requested you specifically, Sakura. Someone requested me specifically. Yes. Once you've collected 30 flowers, you're to deliver them to Ikehara's apothecary. Quote, Sakura's mood lifted a little as she smiled and nodded. Does Team 7 accept this mission? Hi. They all answered, immediately departing. Naruto was unusually quiet throughout the journey to the mountains, still thinking about what that woman had said to Sakura earlier. In fact, shockingly, it was Sasuke who made conversation. Sakura, how did you know about this flower? I'm curious as well. Kunoichi do have to learn flower arranging and the like, but that doesn't usually include a dangerous flower like the bloodroot. Kakashi added, oh, I read about it. You didn't mention plant study as an interest. Sasuke said. He paid attention to my introduction. Her heart picked up its pace and her face felt warm. No, but I did mention reading, she answered when she finally found her voice. Besides, it seemed like a good thing to know. It was silent again until they reached their destination. So which one is it we need to get? Naruto asked, eyes skimming over the fields of flowers. Sakura knelt, looking over the flowers in her immediate vicinity until she found the one they were looking for. There. That one. They're small and white, with yellow centers. The stems have more of a reddish color towards the bottom, and these three-pronged lily-pad-like leaves. Make sure you dig up the roots too. She instructed. You got it, Sakura-chan. Naruto cheered, reaching for the flower. Naruto, wait. Sakura grabbed his wrist. She pulled out a poorly carved wooden jar that Sasuke recognized as the ointment she'd used on him during the test. She opened the jar and began spreading the gel on his hands. Like I said in the Hokage's office, it frequently stains or causes allergic reactions. This'll act as a barrier to prevent any of the oil from staining or reacting with your skin. Good thing you came prepared. Kakashi stated, mildly impressed. Do you always keep that with you? Sasuke asked, eyeing the jar. Sakura blushed a little and nodded. Actually, I have one for each of you, even you sensei, although I left the other jars behind, so we'll just have to use this one for now. She said, passing the jar to Sasuke. The others nodded. Sakura was glad for the lack of argument or questioning. She was not about to allow a mishap on this mission. Not when Ikehara-san had gone so far as to give this to her and her team specifically. Of course, Naruto entered into a one-sided competition with Sasuke over who could pick more flowers, a competition he ended up losing, but at least he made sure to pick the flowers properly. She picked one extra for herself in the hopes of drawing out some of the medicinal properties for her mother. Sakura was on edge waiting for when it would all go wrong, so she was quite relieved when they arrived at Ikehara's shop without any crises. Ikehara-san, took ya long enough, came his gruff voice as he came out from the back room. Sakura smiled as she and her teammates passed him the dug-up flowers. He studied them before giving a curt nod. Good, you kept the roots and stems intact. When I asked for your team, they asked if I was sure, so I was preparing myself for the worst. Quote, Sakura and Sasuke gave a pointed look to Naruto. Hey, what are you looking at me for? 'Cause it's your fault, idiot. Thank you for still giving us this mission, Ikehara-san. Sakura said, bowing politely. Wouldn't trust anyone else with it. You were right to tell me to stock up, by the way. Your ointments sold pretty well. I only have a dozen left. That's good to know. I'll get started on another batch. She smiled. Sasuke's eyes drew back to Sakura. So she'd made that ointment herself. He never told her, but the cut on his arm had healed much quicker than it usually would have after she'd applied the balm. When she learned how to make something like that? They didn't teach them in the academy. This girl was hiding something, Actually, she was hiding a lot of things. He'd seen the way she constantly swallowed her annoyance and anger no matter how many times Naruto screwed up or said something stupid. The times he himself said something hurtful, she'd just choke down whatever she felt about it and tacitly accept his callous remarks. Even this morning, with all the hostility that woman directed at her, she just accepted it. Her smile was frequently fake. It was annoying. He knew this wasn't the real her. The real her decked Naruto in the face for a stupid comment about her period when they were doing their introductions. So this is your team, huh kid? Sasuke's attention snapped back to the middle-aged shopkeeper. Oh, right. This is Uzumaki Naruto. Remember it, cause I'm gonna be Hokage someday. Believe it. The man gave a derisive snort. Anyone ever tell you, you're loud? Daily. Sakura muttered. The man gave a huff of laughter. Sasuke noted the fondness in his eyes whenever they were on his pink-haired teammate, something his eyes completely drained of when they turned on him. Uchiha Sasuke. He answered curtly. And I'm their sensei, Hitaki Kakashi. The Jonin said with an amiable nod. Thank you again for trusting my team, despite their less than stellar record. Ikehara Kenzo. Like I said, wouldn't trust anyone else with it. His gaze returning to Sakura and softening. Something neither Sasuke nor Kakashi missed. Mom's been coughing a lot more. Bloodroot is good for upper respiratory problems. I could make it into a tonic for mom, but the dosage has to be really exact, it's highly toxic otherwise. Ikehara-san, how do you balance the dosage? The man studied her for a second. Topical or ingestive? Your ointment's already good, so I wouldn't mess with it. Ingestive. That's harder. A little too much induces vomiting. A lot too much could kill someone. But the right amount makes for a good cough syrup or blood cleanser. Sakura countered. I'd say no more than 8.5 centimeter piece of root or a single drop of juice. And you'd need to make sure it's watered down and mixed with other compounds. Sakura nodded, lost in thought. Probably some ginger, to help overcome any nausea. Honey too maybe. Ikehara smirked and nodded. Not bad kid. Sakura smiled up at him. Her teammates watched the interaction curiously. Kakashi found it interesting. Her academic scores had always been high, but her overall grade had been brought down by rather pathetic practical scores. But it seemed like she'd actually picked up some very useful knowledge and skills, even if the other two had far greater potential. Sasuke was trying to get a read on the relationship between the two. Had he taught her this stuff? Or was it more like Tyuki, the ramen stand owner, with Naruto? Why did this man have so much faith in Sakura? Despite calling her kid, he talked to her almost like an adult. Now that Sasuke thought about, she frequently spoke as if she were an adult. For his part, Naruto couldn't follow a word of the conversation, and thought it incredibly cool that Sakura could. Well, I gotta work on these so you can go. You lot feel free to stop in any time. That goes double for you kid. He said with a nod to Sakura. Thank you Ikehara-san. We'll be off now, she said with a bow as the rest of them walked out. Congratulations on your first mishap-free mission. Kakashi stated plainly when the door closed behind them. Ah yeah, we nailed this mission. Believe it. It was just picking flowers, dead last. What was that, bastard? Sakura sighed. We should take our wins when we get them. She felt Sasuke's studying gaze land on her, and did her best to ignore the skipping of her heartbeat. Nay, Sakura-chan, that was so cool how you knew all that stuff about the flower. How do you know that anyway? I read about it. You'd probably know more about stuff like that too if you bothered to study. She admonished lightly. Naruto wrinkled his nose. Why do that when you can train? He answered with a shrug. Because sometimes you can't train and that's the only option. As soon as the thought crossed her mind, she tried to push the bitterness back. Sacrificing that freedom is better than sacrificing mom. We should have a team ramen dinner to celebrate our success. He wasn't one for dwelling too long on one topic. Is that all you ever eat? Sasuke mumbled, although he didn't object. Ramen's the best, ya know. Naruto countered. Sorry Naruto, I can't tonight. I have some errands to run. Later, Sakura said, running off before the blonde could object. She found it hard saying no to him when he got persistent, and it's not like she wanted to say no in the first place. Team dinners were fun. Spending time with her team was fun, when Naruto wasn't screwing up missions and sabotaging her paycheck, anyway. And fun was something she hadn't had for a long time. But with how much they kept screwing up and having to start over on missions, they weren't having more than one a day, and she couldn't afford to waste what little she was making on ramen. And she hadn't lied. She did have errands to run. She had to go grocery shopping, catch some fish from one of the rivers in the forest, gather some wood, make dinner, start another batch of ointment, carve some ointment jars, make some more of her mother's medicine, and get started on a new tonicus. Ing the bloodroot. Forget the funds, she didn't have time for a team dinner. As per usual, Sakura was running late. It wouldn't matter too much, she always got there well before Kakashi-sensei. But she still felt bad about it. The rest of her team would show up on time, and she never trusted leaving Naruto and Sasuke alone for too long lest a fist fight break out. But it couldn't be helped. She needed to harvest more calendula and aloe for her ointment, carve some more jars, give her mother a check-up, make sure break fast and lunch were available for her mother, and return and recheck out a couple library books before she incurred a late fee. Sakura-chan, Naruto called, waving, as she reached the red bridge her team always met at. Hey guys, sorry, why are you always late? Sasuke growled, glaring at her. It wasn't the first time he'd asked her this, but it was the first time the question had been laced with so much hostility. What? Oh, I was just. How can we trust you to have our backs if you can't even show up on time to a meeting? His tone was as sharp as a knife. But Kakashi-sensei, actually how can we trust you at all? You don't train much, you're always late, and you never say what you really think. He doesn't trust me. A burning sensation prickled in her eyes and she immediately tried to blink the tears away. What the hell is wrong with you bastard? Naruto interjected, grabbing the raven-haired boy's shirt, but he pushed him off and kept going. You don't say anything. Not when Naruto screws up our missions, not when he says something stupid that crosses a line, not when I say something that crosses a line, not when some random woman berates you in front of your team. Not even when the girls at school would talk shit about you. You just take it. The bastard is right about that, Sakura-chan, you should stick up for yourself more. You don't have to be such a jackass about it though, he said, sending a hard glare to Sasuke, who ignored him. When we did introductions, you punched the dead last for saying something unbelievably stupid, that was a person I could respect. But since then, you don't even say anything when he says something stupid or I say something hurtful, let alone punch us. You've had plenty of moments and reasons to get angry, but you don't. You just take it. Quote, he doesn't respect me. Everything in Sakura felt simultaneously numb and shattered. She felt a bubbling of something burning hot in the pit of her stomach. You really should say how you're feeling more, Sakura-chan, but seriously bastard, enough. Naruto tried to unsuccessfully intervene again. It was a little hard since he actually found that he did agree a little with what Sasuke was saying, but he was still being too harsh. If we were on a battlefield, you'd probably just bow your head to the enemy and let them kill you. How can we trust you when you keep holding back? We don't need someone so passive and complacent on this team. Sasuke. What the hell? That's enough. Sakura's voice sounded darker than any of them had ever heard, including her. Sheer rage slammed into her like a tidal wave, and the burning hot sensation in her stomach raced through her so fast, it erased all her control so the words just flew from her mouth. You want to know what I think? Quote. She rounded on Naruto. I think if you stopped being so goddamn impulsive and used your brain for once in your life, we'd have completed twice as many missions by now. Running upstream and slipping on a rock. Are you kidding me? And how do you lose a freaking kid? You had one goddamn job to do. Was that really too freaking much for you to handle? I get that you've had no one to rein you in, but can you really not tell how much trouble you cause? Exclamation mark. How the hell have you survived this long? You really wanna be Hokage? Get a goddamn sense of responsibility, cause our village will be screwed to hell otherwise. And not everything has to be a freaking competition. Do you really feel that inferior to Sasuke-kun? Cause you're not doing yourself any favors screwing up our missions in your pathetic attempts to beat him. Our missions are not the time for you to screw around with your rivalry. Save that crap for training. Naruto's eyes were wide with shock, and a little hurt, but mostly just surprise. He'd never seen Sakura this mad. She'd been holding this in the whole time. She wasn't even done yet, as she turned on Sasuke. And if you stopped goading him every time he issued some dumb challenge, maybe he wouldn't act so recklessly all the goddamn time. She let out a derisive laugh. Her control over her language slipped as she started to swear. Passive. Those bitches from school have been slinging shit my way since I was 4. You really think I was unbothered? Hell no. Crying about it made it worse, and yelling and fighting back only gave them more ammunition. It's not passivity, it's defense. Complacent. I wouldn't even have made it this far if I was complacent. She took a step forward, her hands balling into fists. Always late. Don't train much. That is far from my choice, but unlike you two, this team isn't the only thing in my life. I have other responsibilities, unlike you two who are free to do whatever you goddamn want with your time. I care about this team. I need it more than you know. If someone handed me a knife and an innocent person and said kill them or your team dies, I'd do it. Screw how shitty a person that makes me, I'd kill if it meant protecting you two and Kakashi-sensei. But you can't trust me. Fine. Sorry I never said what I was feeling, like you're oh so forthcoming, and called you two out for how goddamn stupid you were being, or didn't slap you upside the head and you deserved it. No. Sorry I was trying to be nice and respectful of you two. Next time, I'll just punch you in the goddamn face. She finally finished her tirade, breathing heavily. And then everything she just let fly out of her mouth caught up with her in a moment of absolute horror. She looked up at Naruto's shocked blue eyes, and Sasuke's narrowed onyx ones, and felt her soul leave her body. I just screwed everything up. Shanaru. They deserved it. TCH. Finally. Sasuke's glare evaporated into a smirk. Confusion punched her soul back into place. What? During the bell test, when the idiot and I kept going after the bells alone, you chased after me. Was it personal or tactical? Tactical, she murmured in confusion. Thought so, you're the type who can compartmentalize. You were the only one of us who thought tactically with something that even remotely resembled teamwork from the get-go. All I did was assess strengths, he was a Jonin and I was a Genin. There's no way I'd be able to take the bells on my own, but if he was distracted dealing with you, then maybe, what's this got to do with anything? I was wrong anyways, Kakashi-sensei even said so. You're the most analytical and quickest to grasp a situation on the squad. But if you don't ever voice it, then you're just dead weight. Stop holding back on account of our feelings. Most of our missions probably would have been a success if you made us shut up and listen to you. Quote, I'm with the bastard on this one, Sakura-chan. You said it yourself, I've never had anyone to rein me in. Sakura's eyes widened in horror. Naruto, I'm so sorry. Why, you're not wrong. But that's why if I say or do something stupid, you need to slap some sense into me. I'm not gonna learn or know better otherwise. Sakura swallowed thickly, touched and shocked by how much trust the blonde placed in her with that statement. I don't particularly care if you're late, so long as you're here before Kakashi. Sasuke continued. He was curious about it, though he wouldn't admit it, but it didn't really bother him. I do care that you don't train much. If you want to keep walking this path, then find the time or make the time to do it. But until then, just share whatever you come up with us and stop holding back. Sakura felt her face warm at his words. He did this on purpose to get me to release everything. Sasuke-kun cares about us. Thank you. Both of you. I'll try to stop holding back and say what I'm thinking from now on. No worries, Sakura-chan. We're not going anywhere. Kakashi smirked from his observation spot in a nearby tree, glad that the three had worked this snag out. He had a hunch the change in group dynamic would greatly increase their mission success. He closed his book with a snap. It was time to go test out his hunch. Their mission success rate greatly increased since Sasuke had forced Sakura's explosion. There was still plenty her team didn't know. She hadn't revealed her dire financial circumstances, her mother's illness and slow deterioration, or that she'd lost her father on a mission. She wasn't quite ready to reveal that, and while they told her to voice what she was thinking more, she was still acutely aware of their situation and didn't want to burden them further with hers. She'd been repressing many of her emotions for so long that it had become habitual, and habits weren't broken in a day. So her internal self, who voiced everything she'd never say out loud, still held a strong presence in her mind. But she was slowly beginning to voice her annoyance, frustration, and anger, when she was with her team, at least. Around everyone else, it was business as usual. She was also making a little more, now that they could accomplish more than one mission a day. She didn't have to hustle as much, which freed up a very small bit of time. She no longer had to work odd jobs, instead cutting down her hustles to only supplying Ikehara's apothecary with ointment as needed, or street performing. She still hadn't managed to make enough to give herself enough time to comfortably fit in training, but she did work on alternative methods. When her mother was asleep, she'd use their small hallway to do conditioning exercises and stretch. She often dozed off while stretching her split. She'd made some training weights out of an old shirt and some gravel, which she wore on her ankles and wrists all the time. Her favorite method of training actually was street performing. She always used a henge jutsu to hide her identity while doing it, and the combination of the weights, maintaining the henge, while performing incredibly strenuous physical movements for a prolonged period of time, actually did make for some good though unconventional training. Plus she could earn a bit of money doing it, 2 birds with 1 stone. It still wasn't nearly as much as the way Sasuke and Naruto trained, but they had more time and less responsibility than her, so for now this was the best she could do. And Sasuke had been right, for now, that and sharing her analysis of the situation were enough. The entire group's teamwork had increased dramatically. And it was showing in their current mission, to catch a cat. Sasuke, here at point B. His voice sounded even deeper to her over the in-ear radio. Sakura here at point C. She reported right after. It was silent for a couple seconds. Naruto here at point A. Quote, "You're slow, Naruto," Kakashi admonished. Okay. Team 7, There was a rustling sound as their target darted from its spot. The target has moved. Follow it. Alright, it's over there. Naruto spotted. The 3 quickly and silently darted being neighboring trees. What's your distance from the target? 5 meters. I can go at any time. Naruto reported impatiently. I'm ready too. Sasuke was equally impatient to get this done. Me too. Something about this felt like not the best idea to Sakura. Cats were jittery and ferocious when scared. If they all jumped at it now, it could run off again. They weren't even surrounding it, they'd be coming at it in a wall. That'd scare it for sure. Okay, she heard Kakashi in her ear, do it. Wait, she saw Naruto almost lost his footing and Sasuke sent her a glare. What? She could tell that the sharpness in his tone was less annoyance at her and more a desire to get this stupid mission done. Naruto and Sasuke were both getting stir-crazy with these kinds of easy missions. If we all jump at him at once, we'll scare him off. You have a better idea. It takes too long to get a cat to trust you, especially if you don't have food for it. She glanced over at the 2 boys, both looking back at her. Despite their desire to finish this quickly, they placed their trust in her and waited for her idea. That alone made her chest warm. Her gaze landed on Sasuke in particular, who his head arrogantly, his Hittite glinting in the sun. Sakura's eyes widened. Sasuke-kun, can you sneak around to the opposite side of the clearing? He nodded and disappeared in an instant. Sakura leapt into a tree and undid her forehead protector. Sasuke in position. His voice murmured in her ear. She blushed at the sound of it but kept focused on her task. Both of you go when I give the signal. She angled the metal of her Hittite to catch the sun, reflecting into the clearing. She let the reflection dart into the cat's line of vision before holding it still. The cat studied the little light and darted towards it, but Sakura jerked the reflection to the side and held it still again. The cat turned his body to the side, so he wasn't directly facing Naruto or Sasuke's position anymore, and got ready to pounce. Sakura waited until the last second and then whispered, "Go." The cat jumped at the same time Naruto and Sasuke did. Except they were faster, and the cat, whose attention had been solely on the light, wasn't prepared for them. Yuya, I got him. Naruto, who'd been slightly closer, caught him mid-jump, much to his annoyance. He immediately began clawing at the blonde's face. Does he have the ribbon on his right ear? Are you sure it's our target, Tora? Kakashi's voice buzzed over the radio. It's the target, no mistake. Sasuke answered calmly, completely ignoring his teammates' cries as the cat continued to attack him. All right, the mission to capture lost pet, Tora, is complete. Good work you three. Isn't there a mission with a greater sense of urgency? Quote. Naruto shouted, practically blowing out the earpiece and everyone's hearing along with it. They returned Tora to his owner at mission command. As the woman practically smothered the creature, Sakura found herself empathizing with the cat. Serves him right. Stupid cat. Naruto growled watching the scene. No wonder he ran away. Sakura knew what it felt like to be trapped in her tiny box of an apartment with the weight of her responsibilities endlessly crushing down on her. Now then, the Hokage mumbled as he studied available missions. The next mission for Team 7, an errand to the neighboring town, babysitting the chief counselor's boy, helping with digging for potatoes. None of those pay well on their own, but if we complete all three plus capturing Tora, that's not a bad haul for one day. Or we could just aim for a higher paying mission. I don't think we're ready for. Her thoughts were cut off by a very loud, no. Of course it was Naruto. No, thank you. As for me, I want to do like a more exciting mission. Give us something else. Sasuke couldn't help but agree, the dead last had a point. Man, he's such a pain. This kid's speaking my language. Are you stupid? We can barely train right now. You really think we could handle a serious mission? Nothing'll change if we don't set our sights high. Shanaru. Kakashi sighed. He had a feeling this was coming. Iruka didn't seem to take Naruto's outburst as calmly, both out of concern and annoyance. It was no secret the man cared about Naruto more than as just his student. You fool. You're still a low-rank rookie. At the start, everyone moves up the ladder by gaining experience from simple missions. But it's been nothing but blah missions so far. Naruto was going to sat more, but Kakashi gave him a hard knock on the head. Knock it off, he admonished. Naruto, it's necessary to explain to you what a mission is, the Hokage sighed. Naruto looked up from rubbing his head, confused. Listen to me. Requests pour into the village every day. They range from babysitting to assassinations. A wide spectrum of requests are recorded on a list and separated into A, B, C, and D ranks in order of difficulty. In the village, everyone below me is divided up by ability in order of Jonin, Chunin, Genin, and Civilian, but we're not talking about civilians. Of the ninja, we at the highest level distribute the requests as missions, to those who have abilities suited to said missions. Jonin are given a rank and below. Chunin, B and C. Genin, C and D. And if the mission is successful, the fee comes in from the client. You're also paid per mission according to the mission rank. Sakura knew this already. She'd read up on economics when she was 9. In a village like theirs, Being a high-ranking shinobi was the most lucrative career one could have. Alright, fine. If you insist, all of Team 7 jerked in surprise. Naruto's complaining actually worked. I'll have you do a C-rank mission. You'll be bodyguards for someone. Alright, that'll pay more than these crappy D-rank missions. Quote, okay, we should be able to handle a C rank. Those are also allocated to Genin, after all. Naruto jumped up in excitement. Who? A feudal lord? Or a princess? Don't be so hasty, I'll introduce you now. Could you please come in? Team 7 turned as the door opened to reveal a surly, old man, drinking some form of alcohol straight from the bottle. What's this? It's just a bunch of damned brats. Especially the short one with the stupid face. The man stated, taking another swig from the bottle. Are you really a ninja? Naruto laughed, not putting the man's diss together until he looked closely at Sasuke and Sakura, standing on either side of him, making his shortness apparent. I'll kill him. Naruto exploded, thrashing as Kakashi held him back. What good would it do to kill the old man you're supposed to be guarding, moron? Kakashi asked with strained patience. I'm Tazuna, the veteran bridge builder. You'll be risking life and limb in guarding me to the max until I return to my land and complete my bridge. The man introduced seriously. Apparently that wording was enough to temporarily quell Naruto's temper, as he got caught up in the excitement of their real mission. Sasuke smirked, thinking this sounded far more like a ninja mission than catching cats did. Wait a minute, risking life and limb. That sounds kind of intense for AC rank. Team 7 accepted the mission. The one thing that was definitely at risk while escorting Tazuna was Sakura's sanity. He and Naruto were at each other's throats so often, it made Sakura's head pound. She was doing her best to tune them out and quadruple check her mental checklist. She'd stocked the kitchen, and prepared enough food to last her mother 2.5 weeks. She'd also made enough of her mother's medicine to last the woman a month. It would be on her to remember to take it. But she trusted that her mother would. She didn't have a death wish or anything. She just hoped the food would last. This mission hopefully wouldn't take longer than a week. They'd been traveling in silence for the past 10 minutes, courtesy of Naruto pouting, so she decided to risk amiable conversation with their client. Say, Tazuna-san, what is it? He asked gruffly, reminding her a little of Ikehara. Your country is the land of waves, right? What of it? So much for amiable. Kakashi-sensei, are there ninjas in that land, too? She was still trying to make sense of Tazuna's life and limb comment. No, there aren't any ninjas in the land of waves, but in other nations, while cultures and customs are different, hidden villages exist, and there are ninjas there. To the many nations on the continent, the existence of shinobi villages is a measure of the nation's military strength. In other words, that's how these nations maintain their relationships with neighboring nations. Even so, shinobi villages are self-governing, not under the control of other nations. On a small island like the Land of Waves, where it's difficult to be influenced by other nations, there is no need for a shinobi village. Among the respective nations that possess a shinobi village, the 5 nations of fire, water, lightning, wind, and earth, due to their immense territory and power, are called the 5 great nations. Each of these nations has a hidden village, led by a kage. The kage rules supreme over tens of thousands of ninja in every nation. Wow, so Lord Hokage's really incredible. Sakura mused. You two just doubted the Hokage, didn't you? Kakashi asked, knowingly, while Naruto and Sakura vigorously shook their heads. What is he, a mind reader? Well, don't worry. There are no battles in C-rank missions. Kakashi said, patting his only female student's soft pink head, bringing Sakura back to her initial train of thought. Right, that's what I thought, so why would Tazuna-san say something like that earlier? Oh good. Then there's no worry about getting into a scrape with foreign ninjas. She said with a fake smile, though she still couldn't shake her unease. Of course not. Kakashi soothed. Sasuke turned to study her face, immediately noting her fake smile and how her brow crinkled in thought as she turned away from their sensei. Was she just nervous, or was something not adding up to her? She'd become much clearer about saying what she thought, but he'd noticed that she was still prone to hesitating. She didn't like to voice anything unless she had something fully worked out. In some ways it was good. Half-baked ideas and groundless suspicions often lead to greater chaos and trouble. But, in moments like these, he still found himself passively curious about what was going on in her head. Deciding to trust that she'd tell them if she reached some sort of concrete solution, he turned away and walked on. The group traveled in relative peace for a while, and Sakura was beginning to doubt herself. Am I overthinking this? He's pretty cantankerous and wasn't thrilled when he saw us, maybe he was just messing with us. No sooner had she thought it, than she heard the sound of chains clinking. Whirling around, she turned just in time to see her sensei wrapped in serrated chains, being pulled by two ferocious-looking ninja wearing giant claws on their hands. The first one down, one of them jeered. They pulled the chain in opposite directions, shredding through his flesh. Sakura watched in horror as Kakashi was torn in half. She couldn't hold back her horrified scream. Kakashi-sensei! Naruto yelled in shock. The second one. The enemy ninja sneered, both appearing behind Naruto, who turned in horror and froze. Sasuke leapt into action, throwing a well-aimed shuriken and kunai, pegging the chain the two wielded to a tree. Sasuke landed on the giant metal claws they wore, braced himself against them, and kicked them both in the face. Sakura and Naruto watched in impressed shock. The two immediately disconnected the chain from their claw contraption and skirted Sasuke, one running at Naruto, while the other charged Sakura and the bridge builder. They're coming for him. I can't die here. What'll happen to mom if I die? You should have thought about that before signing up for this. Alright, I need to complete the mission. I have to protect the bridge builder. Quote, stay behind me, she yelled, jumping in front of him and readying a kunai in front of herself. Sasuke's head shot towards Sakura at the sound of her voice. His eyes immediately widened in alarm. While he was mildly impressed that she hadn't frozen up, out of everyone on the team he'd figured she'd be the one who would placing herself in front of their client in an attempt to protect him, he was acutely aware that there was no way she could take them. He moved as quickly as possible, placing himself in front of her with his arms out, to cover as much of her and the bridge builder as he could. The enemy was coming closer, but he hadn't thought out his next move. At the moment he figured he'd just end up taking the hit for them both. Out of nowhere, an arm wrapped around the enemy's neck, dragging him away from the two genin and their client. Naruto looked up from where he'd fallen in his surprise. Their sensei stood before them, holding an assailant in each of his arms. Yo! He greeted smoothly. Sakura felt a palpable wave of relief. Kakashi-sensei. He's alive. She cheered happily. HMPH, show off, Sasuke muttered, both thankful and annoyed. If he was here the whole time, why didn't he just take care of it sooner? Naruto was still trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Wah! He turned to see a small pile of logs where their sensei had supposedly been shredded. He'd used a substitution jutsu. Naruto, sorry I didn't help you right away. I got you hurt. I didn't think you'd be incapable of moving. Anyhow, I have to say, good job Sasuke. You too Sakura. Hey. Sasuke turned to Naruto, a taunting smirk on his face. Are you hurt, scaredy cat? Sasuke. Naruto roared, ready to pummel the arrogant bastard. These guys have poison on their claws. You need to take out the poison quickly. Kakashi cut him off calmly. What? You have to open the wound and drain the poison blood. Don't move so much. The poison will spread faster. By the way Tazuna-san. What? The old man asked nervously. Why were they after you? Sakura spoke quietly, but it didn't stop all eyes from landing on her. Kakashi seemed mildly surprised at her interruption, but nodded. We have to talk, he said with finality, before tying the two ninjas he was holding to a tree with their own chain. These are Chunin from the village hidden in the mist. These guys are ninjas known for continuing to fight no matter the sacrifice. Quote, "How were you able to detect our movements?" One of them hissed. "There probably wouldn't be puddles of water on a clear day like this, when it hasn't rained for days," Kakashi stated, recalling the puddle the group had walked by seconds before the attack. "Knowing that, why'd you leave it to the kids to fight?" Tazuna asked. "If I felt like it I could kill these guys instantly, but I had to know who their target was." "Was it you, or one of us shinobi being targeted? We haven't heard anything about you being targeted by ninjas." Quote, "But you knew you were being targeted. That explains it." Again all eyes turned to her. "What are you talking about, Sakura?" Kakashi asked, surprised again by her statement. "This mission is C rank and Kakashi-sensei said there wouldn't be any fighting on this kind of mission. But Tazuna-san's introduction earlier, you'll be risking life and limb in guarding me to the max until I return to my land and complete my bridge, that would be too much unless you knew for sure someone was after you. So that's why you were like that earlier." Sasuke muttered. He'd never tell her, but he was a little impressed that such a small, easily missed detail had been enough to put her on guard. She flushing. "Sasuke-kun was paying attention to me earlier. Why didn't you say something?" Sasuke asked with a sigh. Well, Sensei said there were no ninja in the land of waves and I thought I might be overthinking it. Sasuke fought the urge to sigh again. From what he had learned about her the past few months, that was typical Sakura. The girl even overthought her overthinking. Those are some impressive observation skills, Sakura. Kakashi allowed, making yet another amendment to his opinion of her. She was far weaker than the other two, who held so much power and potential. And when he'd first met her, he decided she was too preoccupied to make a good ninja. But the girl had revealed herself to have a truly bright mind, keen observation skills, and a sense of maturity and responsibility far greater than the average 12-year-old. She might just make a fine ninja yet. But now wasn't the time to be thinking of that. He turned back to Tazuna. The content of the request was supposed to just be protection from gangs, thieves, and the like. This is now a B rank or higher mission. The request was supposed to be for backup protection until you finished building your bridge. If our enemies were to be ninjas, the mission would have been estimated to be an expensive B rank. I'm sure there's some kind of good reason for this, but being lied to on a mission request won't do. This is beyond the scope of our mission. This mission is too soon for us. We should go back. We need to get an anesthetic to open up Naruto's wound and get the poison blood out. We have to take him back to the village and get him to a doctor. Sakura reasoned. We're not ready for a B rank yet. Kakashi glanced over at Naruto and sighed. This is burdensome. Since we need to treat Naruto's wound, should we go back to the village? Kakashi didn't like the idea of abandoning a mission, but genin weren't ready for this yet. Naruto freezing up was proof of that. Suddenly, Naruto pulled out a kunai and stabbed it into his own hand, much to the shock of the others. Blood dripped down his hand and onto the ground. Apparently, he'd decided to deal with his wound himself. Why am I so different? Why's it always me? Damn it. Naruto. What are you doing? Sakura took a couple steps towards him, her eyes locked on the kunai. Every medical and first aid book she ever read flashed through her mind. He didn't even sterilize the blade first. That idiot. He's gonna get his cut infected. I should be getting stronger, Naruto growled, thinking back on how hard he trained for everything. I'll never get into another situation where I need to be rescued. I'll never be afraid or be a coward. I won't lose to Sasuke, I swear on the pain of my left hand. Old man, I'll protect you with this kunai knife. He turned to face them all with a determined light in his eyes. The mission continues, he declared, making the inspiring though completely unilateral decision for all of them. Naruto, Kakashi drawled, it's all well and good you rid yourself of the poison and all, but if you lose any more blood, you'll die. Quote, Naruto's cool moment shattered, as he began to run around in a panic. No, 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 I can't die like this. Sensei, you're not helping, Sakura admonished, grabbing the blonde's hand impatiently to examine it. You idiot, you didn't think to sterilize the blade first. That's like common knowledge, she growled, pulling rubbing alcohol from her pack and pouring a little over his hand. Her grip tightened when he tried to pull away. And what made you think you could do this in the first place? What if you'd hit an artery? Then you really would have bled out. How many times do I have to tell you to think before you do something stupid? Question mark quote. Sorry Sakura-chan, you know how to handle wounds like this. What can't you do? Too much. Cure mom, make enough to cover her medical costs, train. She shook her head to quiet her thoughts and focused in on Naruto's wound, trying to figure out if he needed stitches. To her shock, it looked like the edges of the cut were smoking a little as they slowly seemed to be closing up. Is he healing already? But, how's that possible? Sakura-chan, you're kinda scaring me. Am I gonna die? Naruto asked fretfully. No Naruto, you won't die. She softened. The wound definitely seemed to be healing itself faster than it should be. She glanced up at Kakashi who was eyeing it too, but he just gave her an amicable smile. I have enough to worry about already. If Kakashi-sensei isn't concerned, I won't worry about it either. Besides, it's not like it's a bad thing, unusual, but not bad. She pulled out her ointment and applied it gently along the cut, before bandaging it. With Naruto patched up, they continued on. Sakura sat on the small boat anxiously. Thick fog covered the area and the reduced visibility did nothing to ease her mind. She ran her fingers through her long pink hair, a self-soothing habit she'd had since she was 5. The soft silky texture against her fingers always helped her ground herself when she felt overwhelmed. It reminded her that when everything was spiraling, no matter how broke and useless she was, there were still things she could control, like her hair. It was something she'd learned long ago from Ino, back when they were best friends. The habit still lingered even though their friendship hadn't, although Sakura knew that was mostly her fault, she'd been the one to push Ino away. The feeling that they shouldn't be here pressed suffocatingly hard around her. This mission is too much for us. She glanced at Sasuke and the memory of how well he'd handled their last fight, and how he'd placed himself in front of her danced in her mind. Okay, maybe not for him, but Naruto completely froze. And he's stronger than I am, so really what chance do we have? Only 50% of our team is actually useful, and if they have to guard 3 people instead of just 1, their focus is going to be too divided. Tazuna-san, I need to ask you something before we arrive at the pier. Kakashi kept his voice low and quiet, so it wouldn't alert anyone to their presence. Who is after you and why? If you don't tell us, our mission may end when you make landfall. Quote, a very small piece of her hoped he wouldn't answer so their mission would come to an end, but Sakura was someone naturally curious and inquisitive, and her desire for answers was bigger. Frankly, I'd like you to listen, the old man began. Just as you said, this may be beyond the scope of your mission. I'm being targeted by a terrifying man. Who? Kakashi prompted. You've probably at least heard his name before. A shipping magnate by the name of Gato. Quote, wait, the Gato. Of the Gato Company. One of the richest men in the world. Sakura asked, astounded. Immediately her teammates' eyes landed on her. Let me guess. You read about it. Sasuke stated flatly. Why yeah, she mumbled. Sasuke's remark made her face turning a deeper shade than her hair. Tazuna resumed his tale, drawing the attention back to him. On the surface, he's the chief executive of a shipping company, but underneath he's into drug trafficking and deals in contraband using gangs and ninjas. Moreover, he runs a despicable business, ruthlessly taking over nations and enterprises. It was about a year ago, he came to the land of waves. He used his wealth and violence to enter this country, and before we knew it, he'd completely taken control of the island's maritime transportation and shipping. In an island nation like ours, having a tight grip on the ocean means having control over everything. The one thing Gato fears is the completion of the bridge that's been under construction for some time now. Quote, I see, Sakura said, as the puzzle pieces clicked in place. Since you're the architect of the bridge, you've become a threat. Then, those ninjas from before were Gato's men? Sasuke asked, turning to her. She gave a nod, having arrived at that conclusion as well. But I don't understand, Kakashi said. Your enemy is dangerous and powerful. Why did you hide that fact from us when you made your request? Quote, Tazuna sighed defeatedly. The land of waves is a very poor nation. Even the feudal lords have no money. Of course, we ordinary citizens don't have any money either. We cannot afford to make B rank or higher requests. Quote, Sakura's eyes widened. Having to settle for far less than what you needed, she understood that feeling too well. She'd been feeling it for the last 4 years. Medical books, plants, and a smart child were no substitution for a real doctor. That's it. We're helping this man no matter what. I'll build that damn bridge myself if I have to. Shanaru. Gato would be able to afford the strongest ninja, ones were no match for. Her fists tightened in her lap. But that doesn't matter, we have to make this mission a success. All her anxiety melted, replaced by pure resolve. She was so lost in her thoughts that she didn't even hear Tazuna guilt-tripping the rest of her team into continuing the mission. Well, I guess we have no choice. Let's continue as his bodyguards. Kakashi shrugged. Oh, I'd be so grateful, the old man replied, hiding his smug grin knowing he won. Kakashi glanced over at his students. Naruto had already been on board since he'd removed the poison from his hand, and Sasuke would never back down from a challenging mission. But Sakura had been anxious this whole time, and was much weaker than the other two. He wasn't sure if she was ready for this. However, he was surprised by how much determination she held in her eyes. He couldn't find a trace of her previous discomfort. He wondered if it was the bridge builder's guilting that had gotten to her. It certainly wasn't the reaction the rest of them had, begrudging acceptance. While he knew she didn't have a lot of money, he didn't know how bad her situation really was. He had no idea that it was the man's inability to request a higher level mission that she empathized with. They stepped off the boat and onto a pier. Many of the structures around them were built directly on the water, even some trees grew out of the ocean. All right, get me home safely, Tazuna declared. The group headed down the pier to the more solid ground of the island. Kakashi sighed tiredly. He knew that the next attack wouldn't be Chunin, but an elite-level Jonin, and he was not looking forward to balancing that with babysitting. These kids should still be doing D ranks after all. Naruto, on the other hand, was excited. This was his chance. He wasn't going to sit back and let Sasuke do all the fun stuff. He ran a bit ahead to scout, and tossed his kunai into a bush the second he heard noise. Nothing happened. Must have been a mouse, he declared, readying another kunai. Naruto, don't play around so recklessly with your shuriken like that. It's dangerous and wasteful, Sakura yelled. Don't scare and confuse us like that, you little brat. Tazuna immediately followed. Naruto ignored them, continuing to look around. He heard a rustle to his left and didn't even think before throwing another kunai. What did I just say? She yelled, punching him in the face. But I swear I heard something this time, Sakura-chan. Naruto defended, scratching the back of his head. Sakura was about to respond, but stopped when their sensei walked past her, towards the direction Naruto had thrown his kunai. She and Naruto both followed, Sasuke and Tazuna, trailing a little bit behind them. His kunai was lodged in a tree, right above a terrified-looking white rabbit. Oh no! The blonde dropped to his knees, hugging the scared animal closely in an attempt to calm it. I'm so sorry. It was an accident. Snap out of it, bunny, please. Tazuna sighed in relief. When Kakashi had gone to check it out, he worried the idiot may have actually sensed some real danger. But it was just a rabbit. I just said don't scare me like that, you noisy runt. He yelled. Sakura would have yelled at Naruto for scaring the poor cute animal, but something felt off. She remembered reading in a medical textbook that animals were somewhat similar to humans in that their fur color would change depending on the amount of sun they got. The land of waves didn't have a harsh winter, it was sunny and mild right now as it had been for weeks. This kind of rabbit should be brown, or at the very least beige, it definitely shouldn't be pure white. Unless it was kept indoors, away from sunlight. Which meant it likely belonged to someone. Someone who was probably nearby. Kakashi-sensei, there's something weird going on. She spoke quietly. Why's this rabbit white? Quote. Kakashi turned to his female student, once again impressed by her observation and analytical skills. Naruto stopped cuddling the rabbit and looked up confused. He could tell that Sasuke was listening in too, curious. You're right. Be on guard. Someone's here. Barely a second later he heard the sound of metal being drawn. Everyone take cover. He shouted. Sakura tackled Naruto to the ground, covering him with her body and pressing his head flat to keep him from trying to look up. Out the corner of her eye, she saw Sasuke do the same for Tazuna. She felt the wind as a giant blade passed narrowly over her head. There was a thunk as it landed solidly in a tree. After a couple more seconds, Sakura deemed it safe to get up. A man stood balanced on the hilt of a sword that resembled a giant meat cleaver. The man stood topless, showing his broad muscular build. He had bandages wrapped around the bottom half of his face, obscuring it in a fashion somewhat similar to their own sensei. Well, if it isn't Momochi Zabuza. The missing nin from the land of mist. Kakashi drawled, sounding far more at ease than he felt. He sensed Naruto moving behind him, and figuring he meant to charge the man, held out his hand. Don't interfere. Give me room. This one is on a different plane from our previous opponents. Kakashi of the Sharingan I presume. If it wouldn't be too much trouble, could you hand over the old man? Zabuza spoke with a deep gravely voice. Sharingan. What's that? Sakura noticed Sasuke stiffen a little. Sasuke-kun seems like he heard of it before. You three. Assume the Manji battle formation. Protect Tazuna-san. Stay out of this fight no matter what. That's the kind of teamwork this battle calls for. Kakashi ordered. They watched in shock as their sensei moved to lift his hayate, revealing his left eye for the first time since they'd known him. It was red with 3 black comma-like marks surrounding the pupil, connected by a thin black line, like points on a circle. A long scar ran from the tip of his eyelid down over his cheek. That scar, is it not his eye? Quote. Zabuza let out a rumbling laugh. To face the legendary Sharingan I so early in our acquaintance. This is an honor. Naruto couldn't take not knowing anymore. You keep saying Sharingan I, what the heck is that? Quote. To both Naruto and Sakura's shock, it was Sasuke who answered. Shinobi who have the Sharingan I have mastered a form of ocular ninjutsu that enables them to penetrate and see the reality behind any illusion or spell and reflect the power of that magic back on those who cast them, and there's M. Or. Exactly. Zabuza said with another gravely laugh. Most formidable of all is the acuity with which the Sharingan can discern and duplicate its opponent's greatest skill. That hadn't been what Sasuke was referring to. The Sharingan's true powers were the stuff of Sasuke's nightmares, and if their enemy didn't know about it, he sure as hell wasn't going to reveal it. When I was an assassin for Kurigakure, I had the usual bingo book, a who's who of our enemies. It had quite the extensive write-up on you. The man who copied over 1,000 different techniques, the copy ninja Hitaki Kakashi. Internally, Sakura's jaw hit the floor, externally, her eyes just widened. Oh, over 1,000 techniques. You're telling me the guy who couldn't even dodge a chalkboard eraser is that legendary? He's really that good? Sasuke felt on edge. Who was his sensei? The Sharingan was unique to the Uchiha clan and even among them, only a small portion actually awakened it. There was no way his sensei was some distant relative, so how could he have his clan's ability? Enough. Pleasant as this conversation is, I'm on a tight schedule to polish off the old man. Immediately the three genin slid into formation around Tazuna. Now isn't the time to be fawning over Kakashi-sensei. We have to protect Tazuna-san no matter what. That's right. There's no way this bridge isn't getting built. Shanaru. But Kakashi, it looks like I'm going to have to kill you first. Quote. He moved so fast. 1 minute, he was standing on his sword, stuck into a tree, the next he was standing on the water, sword on his back. He's walking on water. Hidden mist jutsu. As suddenly as he appeared on the water, he vanished, replaced by a rolling fog that began to lazily cover the area. Momochi Zabuza of the Kurigakure Assassins Corps is famous for the art of silent killing. Letting your guard down around him buys you a one-way trip to heaven. Stay on your toes, Kakashi warned. The fog was coming closer, encroaching on their territory. What's with all the fog? Naruto demanded. There are 8 targets. Zabuza's voice seemed to surround them, making all of them jerk in surprise. They couldn't pinpoint a location. Throat, spinal column, lungs, liver, jugular vein, subclavian artery, kidney, heart. So many choices, what vulnerable place should I choose? Any of those are definite kills without immediate medical attention. Even then, the likelihood of survival is only 10%. It was occasions like these when she hated how fast her mind worked. Sasuke felt himself unraveling. Zabuza's bloodlust was palpable. The man was fully ready and willing to kill him if he caught his attention. He hated knowing his life was in someone else's hands. Hated just standing around waiting for the strike that would kill him. It made him almost want to stab himself to just get it over with. Sasuke. Kakashi's voice was so calm it was jarring. Calm down. Even if he gets me, I'll still protect you. Sasuke's eyes widened. When was the last time someone protected him? I will never let my comrades die. Kakashi declared. I wouldn't bet on that. Somehow, Zabuza had appeared right in the center of their formation. Game over. His weapon of choice is that giant cleaver and he's positioned himself so that all he has to do is pivot with that thing and we're all beheaded or disemboweled. Which means like before our best bet is to duck. She yelled, grateful once again for how fast her mind worked. Out of the corner of her eye she saw Naruto and Sasuke react immediately. They'd gotten used to trusting her judgment in situations and moved without question. Tazuna on the other hand was slower, whether from age, shock, or mistrust she didn't know and she didn't have time to care. Staying low, she gracefully lunged at him, tackling him to the ground just as Zabuza's sword began to hurtle towards him. The movement was arrested by their sensei, who'd read Zabuza's movements with his Sharingan eye and stabbed him in the chest with a kunai. Sensei. Behind you, Naruto yelled, as Zabuza suddenly appeared behind him, and the one in front of him dissolved into water. Zabuza's sword cut through their sensei like wet clay, and Sakura heard herself shriek. But Kakashi simply dissolved into water, as the assassin had earlier. A kunai came to rest against Zabuza's neck. Don't move. Game over, Kakashi said coolly. The sword wielder let out a rumbling laugh. You think it's over? It'll take more than mimicking me for you to win. A lot more. But you are good. In that short time you copied my clone technique and used it as a diversion while you watched my every move. From the mist. Using my own attack against me. Clever. Too bad for you, I'm not that easy to fool. Another Zabuza appeared behind Kakashi. With a quick flick of his wrist, the Zabuza in front of him dissolved into water and he immediately dropped as the sword swung over his head. The sword stuck into the ground and Zabuza braced against it, aiming a powerful kick at Kakashi which sent the man flying meters away into the water. The three genin were in shock at how strong their enemy was. Wait, the mist, water clones, all of this man's jutsu are water-based, which means being in the water is a huge disadvantage. Kakashi-sensei, you need to get out of the water, now. Kakashi, who was struggling with the unnatural weight of the water, jerked his head up in surprise. Why was it so imperative for him to get out of the hey gullible fool, water prison jutsu? His eyes widened as water surrounded him, completely trapping him. He'd made a tactical error in attempting to go underwater to regroup. One his genin student had apparently foreseen and tried to warn him about. It was too late to do anything about it now. I'll deal with you after I take care of the others. Zabuza informed him, creating another water clone. Listen you three. Take Tazuna and run. He has to stay here to hold me, and he'll lose control of his water clones if they go too far. Run. The three genin stood paralyzed, trying to figure out what to do. Zabuza began mocking them, lecturing them on how they weren't real shinobi, but Sakura wasn't listening, she was too busy weighing options. If we run, he can't follow us right away, but once he finished with Kakashi-sensei, he'd come after us. Or even if Kakashi-sensei managed to survive and kill Zabuza, he'd probably be injured or weakened and might not catch up to us right away. In that time Gato would send someone else to finish off Tazuna-san. Quote, she shifted so she was directly in front of their client. Naruto got kicked by the water clone so hard his forehead protector flew off. Naruto. Sakura shrieked. The blonde lay on the ground on all fours, shaking. There's no way we could fight him and win, he's Jonin level. Maybe even higher. We can't. You may have been able to take the bells if the three of you coordinated an attack together. Run you three. Take Tazuna and run. In his attempt to stand up, Naruto pressed hard into his bandaged hand. A wave of pain went through him, but it brought the memories of his vow along with it. Memories of Iruka-sensei taking him out for ramen and of Kakashi's words to them when they passed the bell test. He couldn't run away. He'd made a vow, and he never went back on his word. Naruto charged Tazuna again. Sakura shrieked and even Sasuke made a noise of surprise. Again Naruto was sent flying, rolling to a stop a little in front of them. What were you thinking tackling him by yourself? Are you hurt? Did you break anything? Sakura half scolded, half worried. Her worry was cut short when Naruto arose, Hitai in hand. Hey you. What's life like without eyebrows, you freak? I got a new listing for your bingo book right here. The guy who's going to be the next Hokage. Uzumaki Naruto. Konoha School Ninja. He shouted, proudly readying his headband. It was foolhardy and reckless, but Kakashi couldn't help but be a little impressed with the kid's spunk. Even Tazuna, who'd written Naruto off as a useless loudmouth, found himself admiring the young man. Is this really Naruto? He's kinda cool like this. Whatever. There are more important things to focus on. Running isn't an option. We can't fight him and win. The only one who might be able to is Kakashi-sensei, which means Naruto, Sasuke-kun. Both boys moved in closer to her. She spoke quietly so as not to be overheard. We can't win this battle. We can't run away, Sakura-chan. We can't just leave Kakashi-sensei. Shut up and let me finish, damn it. We can't beat him, but Kakashi-sensei might be able to. He can't help right now. Sasuke stated. Which is why we need to free him. We don't even have to do damage, we just need to get the real Zabuza to break the jutsu. How do we get him to break the jutsu? Naruto asked. Kakashi-sensei said that Zabuza couldn't move so long as he had to maintain the water prison. Any jutsu requires focus to execute and maintain. That gives us two options. Break his focus, or force him to move, specifically his right arm, since that seems to be the one maintaining the jutsu. Quote, oh, that gives me an idea. Sasuke. HN. So, it's time for some teamwork. Okay, time to rock and roll. Naruto shouted, effectively ending their strategy session. Just like that, they're not even gonna discuss his idea. Exclamation mark quote, you're very sure of yourself, but do you really think you stand a chance against me? What's the matter with you? I told you to run. It's over. It was over the second he caught me. You have to do your duty, keep that in mind. We're here to protect Tazuna-san. Kakashi yelled at them. What were his students thinking? They were being stupid. From Naruto it was expected, but Sasuke and Sakura. Gramps? Naruto asked. The three of them turned to Tazuna, waiting for his verdict. Let's face the facts, the truth is I got us into this mess by lying. I've had a real long life, and it would be wrong to let you four kids get yourselves killed trying to save me. You're smart, you're skilled, and you're gutsy, he said, addressing the three of them in turn, if this is the conclus Ion you've reached. Go ahead. Give this fight everything you've got. So that's it. Sasuke called, answering their sensei, who looked shocked. Are you ready for this? Naruto taunted. Zabuza broke into peals of laughter. Apparently you don't care if you live to get any older. Playing at ninja like it's a child's game. However, by the time I was your age, I already dyed these hands with my enemy's blood. The demon Zabuza. Quote, it appears my reputation precedes me. Long ago, the village hidden in the mist was also known as the village of Bloody Mist. The final step to becoming a ninja was the most inhumanely difficult test imaginable. Kakashi explained. So, you've heard of our graduation exercise. What kind of graduation exercise? Although she asked, Sakura got the feeling she really didn't want to know the answer. It's kind of a killing spree among classmates. Students who'd been friends, eating from the same dish, as undergrads were divided into pairs and forced to fight against each other to the death. Think of it. Comrades who had trained together, lived together, shared each other's every hope and dream. That's terrible. Sakura murmured in a broken voice. The mere thought of being forced to kill any of her team or classmates, Sasuke, Naruto, Ino, even Amy. It was painful to even consider. She'd never be able to do it. 10 years ago, the elders of the Hidden Mist were forced to enact a sweeping reform to their barbaric graduation ritual, due to an incident that happened the previous year. Kakashi continued. What reform? Sakura pressed. What incident? I'm guessing it was related to you. She said, her attention turning to Zabuza. She wasn't sure how she had the courage to so much as look at the man, but it was the least she could do. She didn't have the ability to face him in battle, the least she could do was keep her fear in check and speak to the man. A reform to change the graduation exercise entirely. Because, Kakashi answered, without a moment's hesitation, without any hint of struggle, a boy who hadn't even qualified yet as a ninja, butchered over 100 members of that year's graduating class. Zabuza looked up sadistically. Ah yes. Good times. I used to have such fun. His water clone was suddenly in front of Sasuke, pounding him into the ground so hard he coughed up blood. Sasuke-kun, she screamed. She wanted to run him, make sure he was okay, but she stopped herself. Naruto and Sasuke-kun have a plan, and are already in close proximity to the enemy. If I go to check on him, I might not only get in their way or get myself killed, but I'd be leaving Tazuna-san open. Quote, but Sasuke-kun, that bridge has to get built. Our mission is to protect Tazuna-san. I might not be able to fight off Zabuza, but I can at least keep the bridge builder alive. I have to stay close to him. Quote, she was right to do so. Naruto and Sasuke did have a counter-attack. Using his shadow clones, Naruto leapt at Zabuza, dogpiling on him to keep him away from his teammate. The missing nin dispersed them with one sweep of his sword and sent Naruto flying, but not before the blonde tossed a windmill. Shuriken to Sasuke. The raven-haired boy caught it with a graceful spin and leapt up throwing it at the real Zabuza. The man caught it with ease, but was surprised by the second shuriken, hiding in the shadow of the first coming straight for him. Zabuza was forced to jump to avoid it, but it wasn't enough movement to break the water prison holding their sensei. Still an amateur. The man growled smugly. Damn it. He dodged. It didn't force enough movement. She glanced at Sasuke, expecting to see anger, frustration, or even fear. What she didn't expect was to see him smirking. Suddenly there was a loud poof, and the windmill shuriken Zabuza dodged turned into Naruto, now positioned well behind the enemy's back. Naruto hurled his kunai directly at Zabuza's right shoulder, forcing him to pull his arm away to evade the knife, which still managed to cut across his cheek. So that was their plan. Amazing, they didn't even really discuss it. Zabuza was pissed, immediately charging at the blonde with the windmill shuriken he'd caught, and Naruto, just barely splashed in the water, was in no position to save himself. Sakura watched in horror, unable to look away and terrified for the worst, when Kakashi appeared in front of Naruto, blocking the blade with his hand. The white-haired man glared up at his opponent, and in that moment, he looked scarier than Zabuza. Naruto, your scheme was brilliant. Naruto gave a cheeky grin. Sakura-chan said running and fighting wouldn't work and that our best bet was to free you. She said to do that we either had to break his focus or get him to move his arm. So I used the shadow clones as a diversion to transform into a shuriken, then a clone passed me to Sasuke Tem, who noticed immediately and stacked his own shuriken on top to hide me and threw both at the true body. Since he dodged, I was able to get behind him. Naruto explained proudly. You've matured, all of you. Kakashi praised. So you got me in such a rage that I dropped my own jutsu. Call it what it was, Zabuza. 3 children cornered you and forced your hand. Just so you know, the same trick won't work on me twice. Your move. Zabuza leapt away and began weaving hand signs, but was completely mirrored by Kakashi. Water style. Water dragon missile. They both cried simultaneously. There was an explosion of water, completely flooding the area. Sakura held Tazuna to keep him steady, lest he fall at the force of the wave. The spray died down to reveal Kakashi, copying every small gesture Zabuza made. Whatever Zabuza did, Kakashi did at the exact same time, like a mirror image. And it was throwing the enemy off. He was clearly shaken by how Kakashi saw through his every move. It was like the Leaf Jonin was reading his thoughts. He had to be. He was finishing Zabuza's own sentences. You mimic me like a parrot. I'll close your damn beak for good. He shouted, forming the signs for one of his strongest jutsu, but stopped short when he looked at Kakashi and thought he saw himself standing next to him. Was it an illusion? Water style. Giant waterfall. Kakashi finished, to Zabuza's horror. The Leaf Jonin had completed the jutsu before he had. How was that possible if all he was doing was copying? Exclamation mark. The giant wave splashed over everything, and Sakura slapped her hand over Tazuna's mouth and nose so he wouldn't inhale the water when it washed over them. When the wave let up, Sakura removed her hand and looked up to see her sensei in a tree above a rattled Zabuza. What? Can you see the future? The man rasped. I foresee your death. Kakashi answered coldly, and was just about to go in for the kill when two Senbon pierced into Zabuza's neck. Where did that come from? Another enemy. Her eyes immediately traced the needle's flight path to their point of origin. A boy in a mask standing on a branch across from her sensei. The boy let out a light chuckle. Your prediction came true. Quote. Kakashi jumped down next to Zabuza, checking for a pulse. He found nothing. Thank you for your help. I hope you don't mind my interfering. I wanted to put Zabuza out of his misery myself. That mask, you're a hidden mist hunter nin, if I'm not mistaken. Quote. Quite the smart one. You're correct. The boy acknowledged. A hunter nin? Sakura asked, the group moving a little closer to their sensei. Yes. I'm part of an elite tracking unit, charged with tracking and disposing of missing ninja. Quote. He sounds our age, maybe younger. Naruto had noticed it too, and he didn't take it well. What the hell's going on here? Who are you? He demanded. Relax, Naruto, he's not our enemy. Kakashi chided. That's not what I meant. Zabuza wasn't exactly a pushover. How the hell did he take him down so easily? I get it. It's hard to accept, but it's a fact you'll have to get used to. This won't be the only time you meet someone younger than you, who's stronger than me. Kakashi answered, gently but firmly. The boy jumped down, alighting silently next to the fallen Rouge. Your battle's over for now, and the remains must be disposed of, lest they give up our secrets to our foes. Well then, I must be off. The boy vanished in a whirlwind along with Zabuza's body. Something about what the boy said bothered Sakura. She replayed his words in her head. Your battle's over for now. Why for now? Zabuza's dead. Of course, Gato will likely send others, but this boy shouldn't know that. If his mission was just to kill Zabuza, he wouldn't know about our situation, maybe he was just assuming. That didn't quite sit well with her though. We still have to get Tazuna-san home. Let's put our best foot forward. But just as he turned to take a step, their sensei abruptly fell. The group rushed over to check on him. What happened? Kakashi-sensei, Naruto cried, in surprised panic. Sakura dropped down beside him and began looking him over. She worried it may be internal injuries from the kick he took earlier, but she didn't see any bruising when she pulled up his shirt, and when she tapped around the area, there wasn't the squishy texture he read about in her medical books. She hadn't seen him take any other injuries except for the one on his hand, which she quickly cleaned, applied ointment to, and bandaged. She had read in one book that ninjas suffering from severe chakra exhaustion might collapse, become temporarily paralyzed, or run low-grade fevers. Do you know what's wrong with him, Sakura-chan? Will he be okay? His questions made her uncomfortable. He was talking to her like she was a doctor, and she was acutely aware of how much she wasn't. Her mom was proof of that. She couldn't do any more than guesswork and basic first aid. I'm not a doctor, Naruto, she answered, unable to keep the annoyance at her inability out of her voice. How should I know? You're a walking encyclopedia. You most likely read something useful somewhere that can help with this. Sasuke answered. He trusted her judgment. She may not train enough, but she did read a lot, and what she read in her application of it seemed useful. Besides, she made that ointment, which had worked very well. And that old apothecary who seemed like the type to not like anyone, clearly liked and respected her. That had to mean something. She may not be a doctor, but she was closer to one than he, the dead last, and maybe even Kakashi were. Her spring green eyes shot to him in shock and her cheeks tinted red. He really? Sasuke-kun believes in us. Sasuke-kun, she cleared her throat and looked down at their sensei. She gave him another check for injuries, but again, found nothing obvious. My guess is it's either blood loss from his hand, or chakra exhaustion. I bandaged his hand already. If it continues to bleed, I can stitch it at Tazuna-san's house. I wouldn't want to do it here, since the conditions are too unsanitary. Although, if it's that, he should still be able to move, although he'd be dizzy. If it's chakra exhaustion, he won't be able to move for at least a day, probably longer. Either way, he'll need rest. So, we'll have to carry him then. Sasuke finished. He knelt across from her and looped one of Kakashi's arms around his neck, while she did the same with the other. They both rose, bringing their sensei up with them. You want me to take him, Sakura-chan? Naruto asked, excited to help her, but she shook her head. Sasuke-kun and I are closer in height. It'll be easier this way. Besides, you could use a break too, he kicked you around pretty badly. Lead the way, Tazuna-san.